vivir en nuestra patria, con nuestro presidente, con los hombres y las mujeres que amamos este país. Déjanos en paz. Queremos paz. Tú nos quieres llevar a la guerra, nosotros queremos paz. Pero ya estamos en la calle, dispuestos a dar nuestra vida si es necesario para defender a la patria a nuestro presidente Nicolás Maduro. ¡Que viva Maduro! ¡Que viva! ¡Viva Venezuela!
Across the country, people are showing up and making their voices heard at Ice Out for Good events. The crowds say they're doing it to honor the memory of 37-year-old Renee Good, who was shot and killed here in Minneapolis by an ICE agent last week. Here in the Twin Cities, thousands of protesters in dozens of communities came out to protest the ICE presence.
In North St. Louis have a new place to show off their skills. Today was the grand opening of a new basketball court at College Avenue and West Florissant. The court is a project from the Black Power Blueprint, a community-driven initiative to acquire and redevelop properties in North St. Louis. Organizers say it's all a part of a larger plan for economic development and self-empowerment in North City neighborhoods.
And we say Uhuru because it does mean freedom. Because we believe that freedom is something that should be on the minds of black people 24 hours a day. That's what we're struggling for. That's what this basketball court is about.
Today's grand opening celebration also included food, music, and giveaways for the entire community.
Uhuru, comrades. Wow. I just want to salute this moment. Uhuru means freedom. I want to make sure that I do say that. Freedom is a Swahili word for freedom. And you're going to hear that a lot throughout this program because we are very serious about our freedom, the freedom of African, indigenous, all colonized peoples who are suffering under the boot of colonialism in all of its forms and all of its iterations. We are here today on that understanding. And so I just want to really open this meeting by saluting this body and the work that we will continue to forward. So my name is Mwezi Odom. I am the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa counteroffensive, which was initiated in 2022, July of 2029. And I am also representing the coalition that has come out of that and the various fronts of the anti-colonial free speech movement. So I want to salute our comrades and everybody who is joining us. And I want to also salute and welcome up my co-MC, Comrade Ann, who is based in Ecuador and a supporter of the movement. So Uhuru, Ann, great to be on with you.
Uhuru and Mwezi, great to be here.
Uhuru, comrade. So we have a very important program on today. And as you can see, we have our representatives from around the world. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. Yeah. And Uhuru Pravia, great to see you there. We're going to really looking forward to inviting you up and introducing you in today's program. So we do have a PowerPoint, so I'd like to go ahead and pull that up. And these slides are going to just be part of an overview for us to understand, just to sum up what's happening in the world and why we are here on today. So who will be helping me through this PowerPoint is Comrade Penny Hess. Are you there, comrade? And this comrade is one of the Uhuru Three, the chairperson of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And her and I will be going through this PowerPoint together, but I'll go ahead and get us started.
Uhuru.
So, oh, there you are. I see you.
Uhuru, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Salute to the chairman. And this is going to be, and all of our guests and just the people struggling around the world for freedom and independence. So it's an honor to be here, Uhuru.
Yes, it is. It's an honor to be here. And, we're here on today, as we said, this event is called the Uhuru Three Speak Out. The Uhuru Three, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, they speak out. We say 2, 3, many Venezuelas. And so this is an opportunity for us to fight back in response to the U.S. brutal bombings and attacks on the people of Venezuela and the kidnapping and arrest of President Nicolas Maduro and first combatant Celia Flores in violation, as we understand, of international law. And so this is a call to action that's joining many other actions around the world to denounce these brutal assaults on anti-colonial free speech and self-determination. Uhuru. So next slide, please. So again, Uhuru means freedom, libertad. This is our understanding that, this is something, again, that you will say. So Uhuru, comrades. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, which has, developed into this Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, which is a coalition of organizations across the political spectrum to build the anti-colonial free speech movement. And from this front and on today's program is the Latin America front. We say build the Hands Off Uhuru Latin America front, and you can learn more about that by going to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. We launched in October of last year, and we're going to continue to build. And we have many of those comrades on the call with us today. So our guests for today are Chairman Amalia Shatella, Chair of the African Socialist International and the African People's Socialist Party. Fravia Marquez, very, very welcome excited to have on today a Venezuelan diplomat who will be joining us in Venezuela. We also have Comrade Andreina Chavez and Jesus Rodriguez, also coming from Venezuela, Venezuelan journalists. Comrade Libre ex Sankara, speaking on the Puerto Rico front. Lupe Cardona Carrasca, or Carrasco with Union del Barrio. Mark Friedman with Hands Off Cuba. Paolo Cruz, and also Comrade Destiny Rivera, also with Hands Off Cuba front. Comrade Paolo Cruz Alegui with Los Ronderos de las Redes on the Peruvian front. And we're very excited to have dear comrades, Afia Wangaza, who is a member of the UN Forum on the Peoples of African Descent, and also here with WMXP Radio. Zaki Barudi of the Universal African Peoples Organization, and comrades Jesse Neville and Penny Hess, who are two of the Uhuru Three. And we're going to be hearing about the campaign to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act and other conspiracy laws that target, political speech, as well as hearing from Chairwoman Penny, who will read a statement from herself and some others. So that was kind of a long thing, but I really just want to salute all of our guests. So I'll turn it to you, Chairwoman Penny. Why we say 2, 3, many Venezuelas, and this is a slogan from Che Guevara, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you again. Really want to salute you and my leadership from the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Shatella, Deputy Chair Onizane Shatella, and I'm very, very, very excited to be here. So the slogan, 2, 3, many Venezuelas, was from Che Guevara's slogan that said 2, 3, many Vietnams. That saluted the victory to colonized and oppressed peoples and the right to struggle for freedom and independence around the world.
Uhuru. And so we say 2, 3, many Venezuelas. And we ask you right now to take a moment to share this webinar. Send this link to your, tell people to go to handsoffuhuru.org and they can see where to register. Joining us right now, we're on Zoom as well as YouTube and on Facebook. And we want to start off our program by saluting our fallen comrades, who we lost in 2025. Comrade and Sister Asada Shakur, we say presente. We say long live to Comrade H. Rat Brown, also Imam Jalil Al-Hamin, for the work that he has done and his contributions to the Black liberation struggle here in the U.S. So presente. And long live. And we also say long live to Comrade, and we want to salute Comrade Kwame Che Shakur, who is a organizer with the Black Liberation Party and the Black Liberation Circle, and who has joined us, who was there with us at the trial for the Uhuru 3 trial, and was, quoted saying in one of our earlier webinars, the Black Liberation Party and the Black Liberation Circle stand with the Uhuru 3. He says, Uhuru Sasa, that means Uhuru now, all power to the people, boots on the ground. And I just really want to salute that, that statement. They were boots on the ground, and that's what we were calling for, and that's what helped us win that fight back. And we say, que viva and long live to the 32 Cuban revolutionaries who were there in Venezuela during this brutal attack. And Many were, there as soldiers and others doing political organizing on the ground. And we want to salute them, and we want to salute Cuba for its long time, stance in the revolution. Um, so I want to just salute my leadership, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and leader of the Global African Revolution. And I salute my leadership, Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshatela, who is the Deputy Chair of the African People's Socialist Party and the architect of, real material work in building Black Power, of the Black Power Blueprint, which is an economic development program helping to build a liberated African economy. We salute the Uhuru Three, Comrades Chairwoman Penny Hess and Chair Jesse. Both have led, on the U.S. front and beyond, what solidarity with Black Power, and this is under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, and we want to salute these comrades. We say victory to the Uhuru Three, who were three leading members of the Uhuru movement and who were tried in a federal court by the U.S., making bogus allegations implying that the party's 50-year struggle for Africa and African people was some part of some conspiracy with foreign agents, and in that case they used Russia. We understand that the attacks on the chairman, on Amalia Shatella, was the canary in the coal mine, and this was the opening salvo in a war on free speech. The FBI raided, the home of I think I'll probably skip some of this other part, but you can add to that, Chairwoman Penny, later. But just really wanted to say, oh, actually, yes, let me come back. The FBI raided the home of Washington Post reporter Hannah Nathanson this week and seized her electronic devices, part of a leak and a probe into the government contractor accused of mishandling classified government materials. So this individual was reported, has reported extensively on the Trump administration's changes to the federal bureaucracy, including mass layoffs to government workers. And so this comes amid a broader pattern of attacks on the media, including lawsuits, funding cuts, an increase, and increasing media and technology consolidations. And so this has just opened the door for the government to attack anybody purely on, political speech, political activity, freedom of association. So in that, comrades, we say victory to the people of Venezuela. We salute President Maduro and first combatant Flores. We understand that this intervention was born out of the genocide of African and indigenous people of the so-called Americas, and this is a gross provocation on the people of Venezuela and the peoples of the world. And so we say salute to the victory of the people of Venezuela. So I'll turn it to you, Chairwoman Penny.
Uhuru, and we demand stop all U.S. bombing, sanctions, resource theft, and interference in Venezuela, in Latin America, the Caribbean, and the world. And these are some massive protests in Venezuela against U.S. intervention. Next slide. And we denounce the U.S. abduction and imprisonment of President Nicolas Maduro and the first combatant, Celia Flores, who we learned from Comrade Paolo is not called the First Lady. She is called the first combatant, which is very powerful. Next slide. And we demand free Nicolas Maduro and and first combatant Celia Flores from this brutal kidnapping by the U.S. We also salute, next slide, the Bolivian Revolution, and the late President Hugo Chavez fought for the empowerment of the oppressed and colonized of the world. Next slide. And we say, hasta la victoria siempre, self-determination for Venezuela. And you see here a sea of red shirts, which the red shirts are in support or in unity or members of the Bolivarian Revolution. Next slide. And we also salute and say que viva Puerto Rico libre, and we salute Puerto Rican independence, and we say Lolita Lebron presente. And I know there were many, many freedom fighters, heroic and courageous freedom fighters that led the revolution and the revolutionary struggle in Puerto Rico. Next slide. Hands off Cuba, hands off Africa. Que viva Cuba Libre. And, Trump is saying, the US government is saying that it's going into Cuba, and it's already been in there in so many ways of course, for decades. But, we stand in unconditional solidarity with the people of Cuba and the right for their self-determination and freedom. Next slide. No U.S. intervention in Iran. Victory to the Iranian people. Another place that the U.S. has intervened and done vicious and horrible things against the Iranian Revolution of the 1980s, and is constantly attempting to intervene in that country. Next slide. We say victory to the Inuit people whose land is Greenland, as the Trump administration is saying that Greenland might be next. Well, there's Inuit people, it's their land.
Hi, Mom, I'm in a meeting right now, and oh, sorry, comrades.
That's okay.
Uhuru.
And we say ICE out of North America, victory to the indigenous Mexican people. Next slide. We salute Unión de Barrio, the organization of Mexican and Chicano indigenous liberation based in Southern California, fighting for the independence of the indigenous people on both sides of the false border. We will be hearing from compañera Lupe Cardona shortly, and it always is an honor, an organization that has had a fraternal relationship with the African People's Socialist Party for over 45 years, Uhuru. Next slide. Salute Indigenous Mexican Resistance. Salute Unión del Barrio, which is a longstanding member of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. And Uhuru, we salute the Latin America front of Hands Off Uhuru. And this is a great picture here of
Uhuru.
a screenshot of I'm sorry, Moise, this is for you, but this is a great
Yeah,
screenshot
no,
of the recent meeting, Uhuru.
exactly. No, I appreciate this one, comrade. This was a meeting of our January meeting, and we want to invite others to, sign up and come to participate in our monthly meetings. And this was our Latin America front, the comrades who were on. I want to salute all the areas that were represented: Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Gaza, Puerto Rico, and the Mexican Liberation Front, Por la Raza. So really powerful comrades. I want to salute everybody. And, this is all happening in the spirit of OSPAL, the Organization of Solidarity with the Peoples of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, Cuba, unity of anti-colonial movements and peoples for national liberation around the world. So that's what this, fight back represents. And, in that, as you saw earlier in the video with the work happening on the ground in St. Louis, we say stop the government attacks on the Black Power Blueprint and the Uhuru movement. We invite people to come to St. Louis, Missouri, and look at the work that's being done by the African People's Socialist Party, led by the African working class. And it's really, and just volunteers and people who have who see the work. And, economic sanctions and other attacks have been ongoing in this struggle to build Black power in St. Louis. And we just want to say victory to the African working class and the Black power, community in St. Louis, who has helped to even rebuild after a devastating tornado in May of 2025. And we want to salute our comrades with Sammy Doon, who are also members of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, who are putting out the call right now to free Ahmad Saadat and all Palestinian prisoners of U.S.-backed Israel. And so we want comrades to, look, we can provide some more information later, but please make sure that you are supporting these comrades who are also on that front and who have come under attack. The victory to we say victory to Palestine from the river to the sea, stop U.S.-backed genocide of the Palestinian people. The African People's Socialist Party has always stood in deep solidarity with the Palestinian people's struggle against colonialism and for independence and liberation from the settler colonial state and the whole colonial empire. And, so we see this on the level, here in the belly of the beast, the recent demonstrations that are happening in Minneapolis against, ICE, the attacks on the Somalia community, and others, as we will, talk about. So we say stop the attacks and murders of African people and, from Somalia in Minneapolis to Somalia. I'll turn it to you, Chairman Penny. Uhuru.
Uhuru, we say U.S. National Guard out of U.S. cities. We denounce the murder and shootings in Minneapolis and elsewhere. Next slide. And we denounce the fact that the U.S. President Trump threatens to give the National Guard, quote, absolute immunity to kill, to understand, just the terror that the U.S. has had, the U.S. military forces against the African community forever under this colonial system. Next slide. We salute Renee Good, who was murdered by ICE in Minneapolis, and believe that she took a strong stand of white solidarity with the right of African people to be free and to stand against the U.S. attacks and murder of African people. So we salute Renee Good. Next slide. Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 to silence protests. We see the intensification of repression overall inside the U.S. And this is go ahead, SG Moisey.
Uhuru. And so we say, I just thank you for that, comrade. And so we say fight for anti-colonial free speech. The African liberation struggle has always, had to been about the struggle for anti-colonial free speech. Any speech that is in the struggle for power in the hands of the people from the colonizer. This is a struggle of oppressor and oppressed nations, as the chairman teaches us. And that's a really important understanding that we must have, that we have to be struggling for the side of the oppressed who are fighting for power. And so, it's clear that Trump is just a continuation. He's Biden on steroids, as has been described, a continuation of the colonial mode of production. This is colonialism, what we are, dealing with. And we'll say more about that. But I just want to say that the attacks on Venezuela, the attacks on the African People's Socialist Party, this is all against the same attack. This is, the counterinsurgency on the, insurgency of the people, the uprising of the people. The colonial mode of production, the U.S. was built on slavery, on genocide, on war, on plunder. And, colonialism is the foreign and alien domination of a people for economic exploitation and political advantage. And so we understand that, they must use violence, pure violence in order to sustain itself. And so this is what they tried to do with the case of the Uhuru 3, the attacks on Chairman Amalia Shatella, and Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, and the Uhuru movement was an attack on purely because of what we said. They came with drones and assault rifles in the dead of night, in the dead of the morning, with an assassination attempt, we understand, on Chairman Amalia Shatella and the African liberation struggle. So while the U.S. prosecutes, the chairman, Amalia, chairman, nobody named the Epstein files involving the majority of the ruling class, who are also now being indicted. And so we must keep talking about the Uhuru 3. And we want to also, call on our supporters to continue to keep the Uhuru 3 in front of the people, as this is a battle for anti-colonial free speech, and it's not over. On June 16th, our attorneys who are representing the Uhuru 3, they filed an appeal briefed in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. This is to seek to overturn the bogus conviction that the Uhuru, 3 were, this bogus conviction charge on conspiracy. And so we say the Uhuru 3 was the canary in the coal mine, and that this federal prosecution was the first case in which the government used the statute criminalizing unregistered foreign agents to target political speech and dissenting speech. And I won't go through all of this, but just to say that because we're going to hear more about the Uhuru 3 appeal later on in today's program, but this was a precedent-setting case. And it was a test case that if the chairman and the Uhuru Three were convicted, that we understood that it would open the gates for the U.S. government to charge anyone for any speech that they just simply don't like by alleging that the speech was spoken at the behest of a foreign government, simply on the basis that the viewers and the speakers don't align with the government. And so this was a precedent-setting case, and we did beat the charge of not working for the Russians. But this was because we understand the nature of this struggle. Some of these slides were a little bit out of order, so I'm just going to come back. But again, the struggle for colonialism is important, comrades, and this is what we understood was really a part of our struggle and our win, because again, what colonialism does is the foreign agent domination of a people for economic exploitation and political advantage. And its goal is to strip the people of all human and civil rights and rule without the regard to law. And we've seen the devastating impacts on colonialism since the first workers' revolution of Haiti. The first revolution of colonized forces. So we say hands off Haiti and long live the Haitian Revolution, and no to the colonial military occupation of Haiti. And we salute the work that and the building and the understanding for fighting for power that we see in the Sahel region of Africa. So we say victory and total liberation of all of Africa. Salute to the movements of the Sahel and President Ibrahim Traore and the Alliance of Sahel States. And in the belly of the beast, we must free Comrade Mumia Abu Jamal and free all political prisoners. This includes, President Maduro and first combatant Flores as well, and the Uhuru Three, who they tried to make political prisoners. And so we just say, comrades, that we want to salute the Uhuru Three victory, because this was a victory for all oppressed and colonized peoples. And we got not one day in prison, not one fine for the Uhuru Three. And this was because we packed the federal courtroom with supporters from across the political spectrum and around the US and around the world. And we salute our brilliant lawyers and our attorneys who are on the forefront of this. Attorneys Addie Griffin, Mutaki Akbar, Leonard Goodman, who is taking this case on pro bono, and attorneys Angela Rainey and Tom Inskeep, who were, the legal front of a political movement that has spread around the world with worldwide support for the Uhuru Three. And these are just some images of where, from Southern Africa all the way to Europe, here on the United States and throughout the, so-called Americas, we were everywhere, making sure that people understood that this was their fight too. So we do have a goal to continue to raise support for the Uhuru Three, legal fight back in terms of if the appeal goes through, we will be having oral arguments. And so we want to make sure that we can have comrades, participate and contribute to that fight back. Uhuru. So we're going to go ahead and come back to our program, because I think our overview was, helpful in giving us an understanding about why we're here, what is the, reasons for this struggle, and why we should, work, comrades, to make this happen in our lifetime, as the chairman says. So I would like to turn it back to you, Chairman Penny. I believe you're going to just read a statement from one of our comrades who wasn't able to attend before we move. Oh, and you're muted, Penny. Let me prompt you to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Uhuru.
Uhuru, sorry about that. Yes, we wanted to salute comrade and revolutionary Professor Ward Churchill, who was not able to be with us today. Also, Natsu Saito, his partner, they were not able to be with us, but they, saluted this event today. And the chairman asked that we read Professor Ward Churchill's letter to the judge, the character references that Hands Off Uhuru was able to gather 1,600 character letters that were sent to the judge, which is absolutely unprecedented and really powerful. But I'm just going to read this from Revolutionary Professor Ward Churchill, author and certainly friend of the Uhuru movement, regarding to the judge, William Jung. And it says, regarding Omalia Shatella character reference Judge Jung. My name is Ward Churchill. I'm 77 years old, a retired professor of American Indian Studies and chair of the Department of Ethnic Studies at the University of Colorado at Boulder. I've published more than 20 books, several in translation, and well over 200 articles and book chapters. I'm also a life member of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, was a member of the original Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, and was part of the Leadership Council of the American Indian Movement of Colorado, AIM, until moving to Atlanta in 2012. I have known Omalia Shatella since the mid-'80s and have known him since shortly after returning from Vietnam in 1969, when he was still known as Joe Waller. During the decades that have elapsed since our first direct encounter, my career as an academic and author, as well as my activism, has led to my participation in various seminars, conferences, and other such activities organized by Omali's African People's Socialist Party, APSP, and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. I have also published material in the APSP's Burning Spear newspaper, while Omali and I have been repeatedly invited to share a dais as speakers at universities and social fora in both the US and Canada. Suffice it to say that throughout the entire period, I have found Omali's intellectual output to be penetrating, complex, and profound, yet whether delivered orally or in his 13 books and hundreds of articles, invariably framed in a manner that is readily understandable to people residing at the grassroots. No less importantly, in my view, although he has continuously updated and sought to perfect his articulations, Omali has proven himself undeviating in his adherence to the bedrock principles he's been advancing since at least as early as 1972: anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, anti-racism, self-determination, community, self-efficiency, and participatory democracy. These, I submit, are all the elements of international law, and I know of no one who has been more consistent in asserting them than Omalia Shatella, without purporting to have agreed with him on every point along the way. Far from it. In fact, I must say that the stimulation I've experienced as a result of Omali's intellectual production would undoubtedly have compelled my ongoing engagement with him, the more so since Omali's theorizing has never been offered as a mere abstraction, but has been applied to the APSP and Uhuru movement's community organizing efforts in various inner cities around the country, notably St. Petersburg, Florida, Oakland, California, and St. Louis, Missouri, but elsewhere as well, and thus subjected to testing under the real world conditions, despite their having been resource poor, faced with strong opposition from local elites, and subject to outright physical repression. These efforts here in each case generated tangible material, psychological, and socio-political benefits to the impoverished and disempowered communities at issue. It has been said to me by an 83-year-old version of the civil rights movement that Omali is the only member of his generation who has continued the struggle mounted by the Black liberation movement in terms by which it was defined at its inception. Others of that steadily dwindling cohort have agreed. These opinions were without exception voiced as a signification of respect. That Omali remains fully active in these endeavors at 82 years of age is quite remarkable, and the estimation of this nearly 80-year-old commentator that he's stayed the course for well over half a century without opting at any point to personally enrich himself or take a more comfortable station in life is still doing that. How one is to assess the integrity of an individual is obviously ambiguous, yet no matter how one approaches the question regards Omali, it seems to me that he can only be judged as a man imbued with integrity of the highest order, and a tribute to which must be added to his honesty and commitment. So so he goes on sincerely, Ward Churchill, etc., and just really want to salute that powerful, powerful character letter among the hundreds of others that came in. Thank you so much.
Uhuru, Chairman Penny, thank you so much for reading that really powerful statement. One of, as you said, over 1,600 letters received in support of the Uhuru 3. That one was from professor and activist and author Ward Churchill, Uhuru. And we want to remind everybody to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And we want to continue to remind people in the chat. Our chat moderators will go ahead and do that. So we're going to move into our program now. We're going to hear reports from the various fronts, in the anti-colonial struggle. Our first section, we're going to hear from the comrades in Venezuela. So I'm going to turn it over to my co-MC, Comrade Ann, who's going to help introduce our next speakers who are on the ground in Venezuela. And where are you? I'll go ahead and I'll bring them up while you come on, Comrade. Oh, I see you there. Uhuru.
Uhuru and Wazy,
Uhuru Uhuru.
Salute this amazing webinar and all the information you've given already. Such a powerful testament of what the Uhuru 3 have done. So I want to say that I'm honored to welcome the comrades from Venezuela. They're going to give an overview of the situation on the ground there. Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa of Orinoco Tribune, Andreina Chavez, she's a Venezuelan journalist, and Flavia Marquez, who is a Venezuela diplomat. Welcome, comrades.
Uhuru. And let's see if we can. Uhuru, Flavia, Uhuru, Compa Jesus. I don't see Andreina on right now. Okay, so perhaps Jesus, we will open it up for you, and if you want to introduce yourself, and then Venezuelan diplomat Flavia, we're so happy to have you here. We'd like to also have you give a chance to introduce yourself. And Ed, both what we're also hoping for in this section, I know you've gotten some instructions, but to provide us an overview of the situation on the ground, as we understand it through their eyes, the correct lens, and what are the people, what is the reactions on the ground from the people, and what is the call to action for all of us here listening? What can we do to support, Venezuela? Uhuru.
Thank you, Wesley. Uhuru. I just want to reiterate what I have said to you recently, but I know that we might have new listeners today. So the most important thing that I wanted to highlight is that there was no regime change in Venezuela. And that is extremely important from people outside Venezuela to understand, despite whatever you hear from the Orange Man or the White House. So it's extremely important to highlight that the constitutionally elected authorities of Venezuela are still in charge of the country. That the calculations of Trump and Rubio to kidnap President Maduro and create some sort of chaos in Venezuela did not materialize. So that is extremely important from our compass abroad to know. And again, I would say something that I've been saying for several years already: Chavismo is bigger than its leadership. Despite the importance of our leadership, if someone decapitates one of our leaders, there will be another Chavista willing to take the responsibility, and that is what's happening. Delcy Rodriguez, Diosdado Cabello are proven Chavista. All these campaigns that you read and see right now in recent days, trying to demonize them or put them like traitors or working with Trump or something like that, are pure lies and campaigns to try to divide Chavista and also divide the international support to Chavismo. So I wanted to highlight that. I want to highlight that Trump is making a lot of statements as usual to try to please his MAGA base and U.S. public opinion, to portray himself like the winner of this, tirade against Venezuela, but in reality, he did not accomplish anything of what he wanted, and the only thing that he can show as a trophy is President Maduro, and we are sure that President Maduro eventually will come back to Venezuela. And actually, his attempt to show this campaign against Venezuela as a massive, victory did not translate into support, internal support to him. And actually, his narrative of the internal enemy in which, the Uhuru compass has been victims of, has been increasing. So whatever happened in against Venezuela, whatever has happened against, poor fishermen in the Caribbean and the Pacific in recent months is something that might happen and has been happening already against, vulnerable populations in the U.S. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is that Venezuela might be attacked in the coming weeks. I don't like that. I don't like to think about that idea, but knowing how strong we are, I'm talking about the Chavista movement in terms of anti-imperialism, I'm pretty sure that we're going to crash in a few days with the U.S. government, despite all the efforts that our government has been doing to avoid that. I want to highlight also that President Maduro is not a dictator. He's a prisoner of war, and he should be released. And he is protected by immunity as a sitting head of state, and that is extremely important because that is not only international rule, but that is also U.S. Law. So it's extremely important to highlight that and to make the difference between him and Noriega. Noriega was not a sitting head of state when he was kidnapped by the U.S. And this is the first case in history in which a sitting head of state has been kidnapped and put in a jail. So it's extremely important to highlight that, in the defense of President Maduro. Another important thing that I won't stop to remark and to highlight is that mainstream media, or you cannot trust what you hear coming from mainstream media or the White House, because it's evident that they are mouthpieces of U.S. imperialism. And they are mouthpieces of those that want running and the show, which are the U.S. oligarchs that are actually the ones behind President Trump and all the U.S. congressmen and the political apparatus in the U.S. So they are trying to push this campaign against Chavismo and against our leadership. And it's important to understand that if you doesn't have any option but reading them, you have to read them. I'm talking about mainstream media with extreme caution. Trying to rescue whatever might be true from what they say. And just to finish, I want to say that Venezuelan authorities has been doing in recent days an admirable work of diplomatic juggling, I would call it, trying to preserve Venezuelan sovereignty while continuing the Chavista path. I'm pretty sure that the government is going to have to give some concessions to the U.S. because we want to preserve our sovereignty, we want to preserve our independence, and we don't want to be invaded by the U.S. But again, what I told you at the beginning might come true. I hope that it doesn't happen. But when the U.S. realize that they are not able to twist the will of the Chavista people in Venezuela, our anti-imperialism, spirit, we might have to face new complications with the U.S. imperialism. So I will leave it there, and maybe Efravia will add something.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Uhuru, to all of you. My name is Pravia Marquez. I am a diplomat, a career diplomat. I was in the U.S. I shared time in the U.S. with Jesus. Also, it's nice to see you always, Jesus. Very active. And I'm in Caracas right now. And well, I think Jesus gave us the best talking points ever, because I know most of you are educated yourselves about what is going on in Venezuela. I know even though it is almost impossible not to check on mass media you have checked that you have checked also with your connections, and you have checked in other places where you know you can always find the truth, or at least what is close to that. I would like to add to what Jesus said. Of course, I agree with everything he's saying. That's right. That's the environment we have right now in Caracas. After the attacks, the first comment I made to my friends, to my family was, I am amazed how much we have grown as people, as citizens, how smart we are politically speaking. We didn't go in the streets screaming or crazy, or sabotaging, or breaking into stores. We were uh, able to wait patiently, and the government was able to deliver news in a very timely way for the population. So there were no mistakes, there were no misinformation, no, as much as they could, of course. And every day we have in Venezuela public support, showings of public support for the president, for the first lady, first combatant, our congresswoman, because she's a congresswoman, a lawyer, Mrs. Celia Flores. We have had different sectors organizing in a very peaceful but very strong way to demand the return of our president. And the Congresswoman Celia, support from the Afro-descendant movement, support from the workers, from every sector, women, youth. They have been almost daily on the street asking for the return. Last night, by the way, I was checking on TikTok. It was a gentleman, I don't know if it was Financial Times or other news outlet, very famous, and he was showing videos generated by AI about supposed celebrations in Venezuela of Venezuelans after what happened. And he was English speaker. I don't know if he was from the US or from Europe. But the thing is that he was calling on the people to be careful, because some of them were obviously AI generated, but others were trying to trick the people to believe that everybody was like maybe the Venezuelan diaspora in other cities celebrating or screaming. I can tell you, I live in a middle lower class neighborhood in Venezuela, nearby Petare. And you can find supporters and opposition everywhere here, and they tend to express themselves. We are neighbors. It doesn't matter. You can scream on the window. And that day was the biggest silence I ever heard in my neighborhood. Just one lady far away, after they informed us that our president was kidnapped, and Mrs. Flores, she said, "We are not stupid. We know they came for oil. We're going to get them back." And no one replied anything to her, nothing. So we are on our feet. We are ready. As Jesus says, Chavismo knows, because they are falling in the same mistake they believe when Chavez died. Like, it ended with Chavez and now it will end with Maduro. It's not like that. We have decades working on this. There is a big youth population taking over, being educated, politically educated, empowered by comunas. And even though we now are thinking on open the U.S. Embassy, maybe you know that the U.S., some U.S. diplomats already arrived, I think last week. Days are very long. I don't know if it was last week or this week, but they arrived here at the embassy. It's not officially open. We have also sent envoys there. Vice President in charge, Mrs. Delcy Rodriguez, have said that, of course, we have the right to have diplomatic relations, and we never deny that. We were always open. Nicolas Maduro, our president, was always open to dialogue. He offered plans. Furthermore, our leaders have explained to all of us on TV, even Congressman Nicolas Maduro Guerra, who is the son of the president. He said the majority of the plan that is being laid out about oil, about laws, about economy, was already a plan and a proposition of negotiation that our president presented to US, to the White House, and they rejected it. And then they decided to make this big drama bomb and violate all the possible laws and create so many deaths and so much trauma on our people. That is a separate, I think, area we could talk later. Finally, I would like to close letting you know, maybe you already know, that a movement called the Bring Them Back campaign started to work every day on the return of President Maduro and the Congresswoman Celia Flores in every way possible, with media, with guerrilla media, with every grassroots movements in the US mainly, but around the world. We are active, and of course connecting to groups like yours that have so much experience, that are so compromised, always showing up for Venezuela and for Latin America, is a big part of this. So I'm very happy to be here today with you, and I will leave it there.
Wow. Uhuru, thank you so much, diplomat Flavia Marquez, and also Comrade Jesus. And I don't know if you were going to say anything just quickly. I just really wanted to appreciate that overview from Orinoco, right on the ground in Caracas. And I know we'll have more to say later, but I just want to reiterate what I heard was no regime change. That's important. And also what we're hearing and seeing about some of the, just to salute the government and the organization, that has been put in to secure, Venezuela, and the work to build international solidarity to prevent future attacks, very serious attacks, as Comrade Jesus mentioned. And if both of you can please add in the chat, because we're going to move with the program, but we're going to invite others will be speaking in behalf of this question of Venezuela and the various fronts. But please put in the chat Orinoco Tribune's information, as well as you mentioned the Bring Them Back campaign. Comrade Flavia, if you can put that in as well, anything, and we can look to find that. So we can share that and continue to build on all fronts. So Uhuru, we say Viva Venezuela, and, hands off President Maduro and first combatants Celia Flores, Congressman, as well. Thank you for that. So we're going to move our program, and we want to remind people to continue to share. We are very excited to bring up our comrades, Unionista, and longtime comrades from Unión del Barrio. We have Comrade Guadalupe Cardona Carrasco, who's on the call, who is the leader of the Comisión de Mujeres, I think still.
Yes.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, Uhuru, compa, it's great to see you. And we just want to salute the work of Unión del Barrio here, on the ground, in the belly of the beast, fighting por la raza, and also the work that Unión has done to build real organization on the ground in response to the, ongoing, attacks on the community. And so I'll turn it to you, compa. Thank you so much for being on. Uhuru.
Uhuru, compa, and Muizi, thank you for having me here and allowing me to represent my organization, Unión del Barrio. It is an honor to be here with all of our panelists, and most especially the compas of the African People's Socialist Party, and also Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa and diplomat Flavia Marquez of Venezuela. We are ushering our solidarity here in the belly of the beast. I am in Los Angeles, which has been one of the epicenters of the attacks on ICE. And as also the chair of the Association of Raza Educators, it is my duty to teach and to uplift the truth of the Chavista government of Venezuela, and to honor and to release immediately the democratically elected president of Venezuela, and also the first combatant as well from the kidnapping here in this imperialist nation. We are outraged and in the utmost solidarity, and I want to assure that we are doing everything that we can here to organize our people in solidarity of Venezuela and President Maduro. and also to dismantle the propaganda machine, the imperialist propaganda machine of the United States, which is painting a picture of Venezuela that we know is incorrect and false. We are, in fact, tomorrow, Benjamin Prado of the Central Committee of Unión del Barrio will be doing the political education for the Association of Raza Educators General Meeting on the truth of Venezuela and the truth of President Maduro, and also the truth of sanctions and the impact of sanctions by the United States. We have misinformed indigenous Latin American peoples who reside here in the belly of the beast, who have fallen for the propaganda of, the issues, what they are referring to as the issues and the chaos and of a supposed dictatorship of Maduro. And so we want to ensure that our people are informed here and that they understand the direct connection between the terror and kidnappings that are happening by ICE here in the belly of the beast against not just people of Mexico, not just people of Central America, not just people of South America, but also of the Caribbean, of many different nations across the world that have been impacted here by the ICE terror. And what we are seeing are people who are obviously against the ICE terror and can see the horrific oppression and impact of this violence on our communities, but do not understand and are confused by the direct connection to what has happened to the people of Venezuela and this attempted takeover by the United States of Venezuela. And so we are committed and solidarity to ensure that as many of our people here are clear and also rise in solidarity of Venezuela and the Venezuelan people in a way that is more informed and is an understanding of the complexities of imperialism, the web of imperialism, which is not decompartmentalized. They must understand it in a more holistic manner so that they do not fall into this anti-Chavista, anti-Bolivarian understanding of what is happening in Venezuela. And we also are giving our heartfelt sentiments, and we are disgusted by the working people that were murdered by the military of the United States in cold blood and in against the all laws, all international laws, including American international law, and that have been forgotten and have been disgraced with the accusations of being related to drug cartels. We are wholeheartedly against that. And I, as an educator, both in the K through 12 setting and also in higher education, stand in solidarity and will do all that I can to ensure that that propaganda that we discredit it, because it is completely ridiculous. And so once again, I, Lupe Carrasco Cardona, member of the Central Committee of Unión del Barrio and the chair of the Association of Raza Educators, want to iterate complete solidarity with the people of Venezuela, and also the call for the release immediately of Maduro and the first combatant, the partner of Maduro immediately. And I thank you.
Uhuru, hasta la victoria siempre. Comrade Guadalupe, thank you so much for that statement, and just want to, stand in unity with Unión, the struggle here in the belly of the beast. As you say, your political north is the south, and And that's really important, in terms of what Union represents, in terms of the Mexican liberation, struggle as well. And the African People's Socialist Party is, has a very, very long time, relationship and, principle, built on principle solidarity with that, with Unión del Barrio. So I also want to say presente to its founder, Ernesto Bustillos. Thank you so much, compa. And also if you can add, links in the chat, especially the work that we're seeing with the the communities for self-defense, how people can get involved and attend these meetings. I've been to them. They're very, I just really want to salute that work that's being done. So Uhuru, I want to bring up, thank you so much, compa. I want to bring up our next speaker, Comrade Libre Sankara, who will be speaking on Puerto Rico as an Afro-Boricua poet, a cultural worker, an organizer, and an educator. And right now, Comrade Libre is in Gaza. And actually, I know there was some connection issues in a previous meeting, but oh, I see you there. Uhuru Libre. And just to say, during the fight for the Uhuru 3, you were there, comrade. It was great to be struggling alongside you. So I do want to give you an opportunity to speak on those points. And thank you so much for joining us, Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades. Thank you all for having me on, and I'm really gonna try to connect some dots. I've been in Gaza for almost 2 years now, and I've been able to see what the future of the world is if we continue to go on the path that we're currently on. So I'll start with Borinquen and start to tie some things in. So I come from Borinquen. People call it the oldest colony in the world. We like to reclaim our stories and say we're the people that have resisted colonization the longest because they still haven't taken our homeland from us. Borinquen is the indigenous name of our country, which is why we call ourselves Boricuas. Puerto Rico is the colonial name. And the reason why it's important to focus on what's happening, particularly right now, is because these first of all, there's no international law, and I think we have to be very transparent. The Western powers have been able to push their hegemonic um, uh, uh, wants throughout the region without having to respect international law and have passed this on to the Zionists that they support where I am right now. And so we really need to get a lot more organized and militant against imperialism because they're coming for all of us. My country is being used as a launch pad for military operations and U.S. military interventions throughout Latin America and the Caribbean for centuries. And one of the latest acts of aggression, right, the kidnapping of President Maduro and the first combatant Celia was planned and carried out through my country without and to be clear, without the support of the civilian population. The civilian population has been out in the streets actively protesting against war, against intervention and attacks against the sovereignty of Venezuela, because we know that this is just an excuse to maintain a Monroe Doctrine in the region and to continue to manufacture consent of the working class to claim that we're taking something to Venezuela that people in the U.S. don't even have, right? We can't export democracy because the U.S. is founded on genocide, raping and pillaging of indigenous people and the forced enslavement of our African ancestors. So that being the basis, that is how U.S. intervention takes shape. wherever they go. There is no intervention, no U.S. intervention in all of history where the U.S. intervention has actually led to good, tangible outcomes for the places that are being invaded. It just doesn't happen. And they oftentimes use lies to build consent for this, as they're doing in Venezuela, as they're doing in Iran, um, as they're trying to do in Mexico. The U.S. is threatening to bomb Mexico, Colombia, Cuba. They've bombed Nigeria, which doesn't get talked about quite enough. But the bombing of Nigeria, which happened in Sokoto, is a region that is close to the border with Niger, which poses an attack on the Alliance of Sahelian States, the AES, because the U.S. as well as the French, who were kicked out of um, uh, the Confederate Alliance of Sahelian States, are looking for reasons to attack the AES. And the same day, in fact, the same day that the U.S. kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro and the first combatant, there was an assassination attempt and coup attempt in Burkina Faso. These are not isolated incidents. These are very much connected. And once we're able to connect it, we will understand the importance of unity, of organizing strategically against imperialism on all its fronts, including Zionism, because they are an enemy to our people. And Boricuas know this because not only do we not only is there continued militarization, right? Some people are framing this as the remilitarization of Puerto Rico, but I want to push back on that. We haven't stopped being a U.S. military base since 1898, when the U.S. illegally came and invaded our country. They have continued to use us, and that is why they still continue to occupy our lands, because it is strategic. Um, it's so strategic, in fact, that right now in the Caribbean, 25% of the U.S. military ships and assets are in the Caribbean region. 25% of the global collective of U.S. military ships and assets are in the Caribbean region. That is a very scary reality, and I don't know that people are aware. The same fighter jets that are being used to bomb, the same GBU-32 missiles that are being dropped on us here in Gaza, are now in Puerto Rico, in Trinidad and Tobago, and being used to attack Venezuelans, where, honor y gloria a los mártires. We lost over 100 people in Venezuela, 32 of them being Cuban comrades. And so we have to be very clear about what is happening here and the connections that they have. Now, the U.S. has something called the Monroe Doctrine, which people should look into. And Zionism has actually done something quite similar. There are forest fires, for people that are not aware, that have been started in Hualmapu, which is the area of Patagonia of Argentina and Chile, under Plan Andina, because when the Zionists were looking to create a Jewish ethno state that's based on supremacy, they were looking between Palestine and Argentina, and they ended up going with Palestine under the British mandate. But the Zionists are now in the process of Zionist expansionism in Latin America, and they're doing it through their puppets. And so this is all to say that what is happening and our future is connected to our ability to unite against imperialism. Captain Ibrahim Traore on December 23rd gave a speech at the summit of the Sahelian states, and he said, "A black winter is coming." Right? That Africa is that West Africa is going to be under attack. and we have two options. We can either unite against imperialism, or we can continue to be divided, and they'll start to attack us one by one and continue and push us back towards being enslaved. And this sentiment was shared by Delcy Rodriguez, who said, "We will not become slaves again." That's U.S. imperialism, right? And the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, saying we must unite in Latin America and the Caribbean against U.S. intervention. And so we must continue to understand how all of these things are connected. The genocides in Congo, Sudan, and Palestine are all connected through Zionism and imperialism, and they're coming for all of us. They're not going to stop in Venezuela. They weren't successful in Venezuela, so we have to continue to support the return of President Maduro and the first combatant, and continue to fight against genocide globally. Thank you, comrades.
Uhuru. Thank you, Comrade Libre, and we hope that you'll continue to, that you will stay with us in this program. And this is for all of our speakers, because, this discussion about, what is at stake, but also what we are fighting is really essential because, as we said, earlier, colonialism in all of its, iterations is expressing itself, and we have to be clear about, what we are fighting. So I just really want to unite with that struggle, and to reiterate, some of what you said around, who we are, as Boricua, and I think that that's really important as well. And to speak on behalf of that front, we hope that you'll continue to help us, help building with us in the coalition. So Uhuru, and yes, from the river to the sea, from sea to shining sea, settler colonialism must go, Uhuru. So I want to bring up our next speaker, who we have worked with very closely throughout the Fight Back for the Hands Off Uhuru. We met early on in the campaign on the grounds in LA. These are the comrades, representing the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee. I want to salute Comrade Mark Friedman, who was on the call, who has been a long supporter of the Uhuru 3 and has done tremendous work to help even facilitate, the Uhuru 3 campaign being on the ground in, Cuba, to forward that struggle, and as well as Comrade Destiny Rivera, who is a member also of the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee and is organizing on the ground in Los Angeles and has done, tremendous work. So Uhuru comrades, thank you so much for being on the call. Uhuru.
It is a pleasure to be here today. And it is also a pleasure to be amongst like-minded organizers for liberation across the world. It brings much deep emotion to me to be here today. I want to start off by thanking the African People's Socialist Party for inviting us here, but most importantly for their historical solidarity and defense of Cuba alongside us. Inviting us to participate in this very important conversation in defense of Venezuela and Cuba, as they are siblings, if not relatives, brothers and sisters, united in this struggle for liberation, united in their struggle for sovereignty and to thrive, as the people are being tormented and terrorized by the United States. Thank you for participating, as well as our annual delegations to Cuba. My honor last year was to walk alongside of some of you, learning about the Cuban contributions to the world and the way in which the Cubans continue to resist and thrive in their own country amidst more than 100 sanctions. So it is an honor to be representatives here. And as well, my name is Destiny Rivera Gomez. I serve on the steering committee alongside Muizi Odom. And alongside Mark Freeman and a couple of our comrades. It is a great honor to be a part of that steering committee and to continuously learn from mentors such as Mark Freeman and be a part of these conversations. And to all of you who share such much needed wisdom and knowledge for me to continue my own fight locally and globally. We have been a part of the Uhuru 3 defense and stand with you against FBI harassment and intimidation of your organization. And so just a quick overview of the Los Angeles Hands Off Cuba Committee. We have 3 very important missions, and that is that the U.S. remove the Cuban country from the state-sponsored list for state terrorism, which has contributed to our 3rd mission, which is that all the travel and the trade bans be removed and sanctions be lifted from Cuba. And lastly is that the naval base of the United States be removed from Guantanamo Bay, where currently they're holding detainees who have been removed, abducted from places in the United States, and then basically transported away from their families, and many unable to be located, and also folks who have endured torture and as well as have been taken from us here. So those are our three missions here at Los Angeles Hands Off Cuba. Is what we stand for. It is also with great sadness to recognize the 32 Cubans who lost their lives in combat while carrying out missions on behalf of the Revolutionary Armed Forces and the Ministry of the Interior. And that was at the request of the agencies of this country here in the United States. It is that the Cubans who lost their lives had fulfilled their duty with dignity, resisting fiercely until they were killed in direct combat or in the bombing of the facilities. Through their heroic actions, they upheld the solidarity of millions of their fellow citizens, and they do what Cubans have done for Fidel Castro, which was to stand up and support other countries when they're in distress, when they're being attacked, because it is not only their liberation work that they are a part of, but they are a part of the liberation work of all peoples from all over the world who are experiencing oppression, especially under the firm foot of the United States. So it is an example of the ongoing solidarity Cuba has always lifted up far beyond what many of us know, being Cuba one of the countries who sends the most doctors across the world. While many imperialist, Zionist countries and entities kill, Cuba sends doctors to heal. And so the UN has addressed the UN recently, basically condemning the US military attack on Venezuela and calling it unjustifiable, unprovoked, and illegitimate. And that the ultimate goal is not these false narratives that they're trying to combat drug trafficking. Even if we had all of the evidence in the world, the president and Rubio have already admitted their desires to control Venezuela for land and natural resources, not to free any people from these false narratives of combating drug trafficking. And so it's intentional for us, like everyone has been saying, to read the media carefully and cautionally, and to speak with one another, and to speak with folks like Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa and diplomat Fabia Marquez, folks who are on the ground living this day to day, sharing stories, sharing concerns with their own people in their own neighborhoods. These testimonies are what are going to allow us to move forward and to have the information that we need, as we cannot trust these mainstream media outlets. I will pass it to Mark Friedman.
Thank you, African People's Socialist Party, for organizing this very important educational piece, but also the call to action. The real target of US imperialism is Cuba. They are moving through Venezuela to get to Cuba because of Venezuela's solidarity with Cuba over decades. Their attacks on Mexico also are part of this campaign because Mexico supplies Cuba with necessary oil. Their attacks on Petro and Colombia because of Colombia's solidarity with Cuba and challenging US imperialism. We know that this is the history of 65 years of blockade, sanctions, terror against Cuba, and over 600 attempts to kill Fidel. But we know that the people of Cuba are resilient, like no other people in the world, in defending their socialist revolution. And they will, as President Diaz-Canel has said recently, defend Venezuela to the last drop of blood, as they will defend the Cuban Revolution. This, as Destiny pointed out, is not new. Over 360,000 Cubans participated in defending Angola from the apartheid South Africa invasion, and more than 3,000 died there, giving their lives to defend the independent Marxist government of Angola from the assault by apartheid, backed up by the United States. Or when Grenada revolution took place, and Cuban construction workers gave their lives picking up what little arms they had to try and stop the US invasion of Grenada, because the US was so afraid of a Black revolutionary English-speaking country that had undergone a revolution. We have stood with the Uhuru 3 defense and salute African People's Socialist Party's longtime participation in solidarity with Cuba over decades and participating in the steering committee of the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee. We must blow apart the smokescreen of narco-terrorism. The attacks on Venezuela are for oil, period, simple. The attacks on Greenland even are for the US to rob countries of the world of their natural resources, as imperialism has done since 1898. I want to end by quoting a partial statement by the revolutionary government of Cuba, which I think falls in line with the call to action. This webinar and educational program must come out of this with activities, teach-ins, demonstrations, protests. The African People's Socialist Party is not about talk. The LA Hands Off Cuba Committee is not about talk, as Destiny has mentioned. The international community, this is Cuba's revolutionary government statement. The international community cannot allow an aggression of this nature and gravity against a UN member state to go unpunished, nor permit the military abduction of the legitimate and sitting president of the sovereign country without consequences. Venezuela is a peaceful nation that has not attacked the United States or any other country. For that sister nation and its people, we are prepared to give, as we would for Cuba, even our own blood. The revolutionary government calls upon all governments, parliaments, social movements, which are us, and peoples of the world to condemn the military aggression of the United States against Venezuela and to confront this act of state terrorism that threatens international peace and security and seeks to impose a new doctrine of domination by US imperialism worldwide, and particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean. All nations of the region must remain alert as the threat hangs over all. In Cuba, our determination to struggle is firm and unwavering. The decision is one and only one: homeland or death. We shall overcome. Havana, January 3rd. And I think we can all emulate that call to action and look forward to working with all of you in this effort. Thank you.
Uhuru, thank you so much. Really want to appreciate that statement by comrades Destiny and Mark, representing, Cuba and the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee, and that profound statement that was just read by President Diaz-Canel, in complete solidarity with, Venezuela, but as Cuba has always been, with the peoples of the world. And that is, I want to appreciate you, comrades. I hope you stay on, because that brings us to our next speaker. As we talk about, solidarity, for the African liberation struggle, I'm very pleased and honored to bring up our chairman, Omalia Shatella. And while the chairman is coming on, I just want to say a few things, because, when you, part of why I'm here, even in my understanding of, what needs to be done in the struggle, for the world, it's because of the teachings of the chairman, because of the theory of African internationalism. And I think one thing that it has also made very clear that the party had helped to restore the Black liberation struggle that was, that was militarily crushed in the 1960s, and that we must build the U.S. front of the African anti-colonial struggle. And that is what the African People's Socialist Party, not just in the U.S., but around the world, represents. And I really want to salute the chairman and the party for its leadership on this question. And all of the struggles that we hear, African people are behind these struggles because we are against colonialism, and we understand the colonial mode of production is the reason why we see this in this world. And so we must be against those struggles, because we are for an anti-colonial movement. And so we must build, as the chairman has said, and Mark reiterated. And so I just want to, really appreciate you, Chairman, for being on today's webinar, as we talk about the Uhuru 3 Venezuela, but also what is to be done and the state of the world. So I'll turn it over to you, Chairman, and say Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Thank you so much. And I really want to express my appreciation to all of those who presented up to now. And to remind us that the theme of this particular webinar, 2-3 Many Venezuelas, is something that we've borrowed from Comandante Che Guevara. And that that was a really important slogan, position, statement coming from Che. And I want us to remind everybody that Che was from Argentina and would have been considered a white man who fought the Cuban Revolution, who left Cuba, who attempted to initiate international continental-wide guerrilla war against colonialism in Africa, who died in Bolivia fighting to make the revolution there. The 2-3 many Venezuelas that we are talking about now is something that stemmed from Che's slogan, demand 2-3 many Vietnams, which was extremely important because at one point Vietnam carried the world, the colonized world on its shoulders, fighting against U.S. imperialism and the horrors that the U.S., along with the other European colonial powers, initially, of course, we are talking about France, that Vietnam carried the whole colonial world on its shoulders, of making struggle against that movement, against that colonial mode of production. And Che understood that it was impossible for the colonizer, for the U.S. in this instance, to be able to control the entire world if everybody was moving like Vietnam, if all of the colonized people were resisting. And this is a slogan that was really important at a particular time in the history of the so-called peace movement in the United States, where slogans began to dominate from at least one particular source that was talking about no more Vietnams. And what Che was able to understand that Vietnam, the impact Vietnam was having inside the United States. And so because of Vietnam, there came to be known this thing that was called a Vietnam syndrome, that the U.S. hesitated ever to attack other countries again because of of the massive defeat that they had suffered, not only at the hands of the Vietnamese, but because of the Vietnamese influence, revolutionary influence around the world. So on the one hand, you had Che talking about 2-3 many Vietnams. On the other hand, you had inside Vietnam itself African soldiers who were supposed to be a part of the aggression that was being made against the people in Vietnam, who had begun to turn their weapons against the colonizers instead of fighting against the Vietnamese people. It was an incredible historical moment. And it was one that I want us to remember. And this is the significance of Venezuela too. 2-3 many Venezuelas. Yes, the United States attacked Venezuela, killed a lot of people, even before the escalated attack that included the invasion and 150 air warships that killed so many people there. The U.S. was involved in this desperate attack to try to hold back history, the history that the Vietnamese people had fought to make, the history that stands between the past of colonial domination and the future of the liberated peoples of the world. And Che, for whatever else one may say, he was clear that all of these struggles were related. In Cuba, we mentioned Cuba, which I think is has been a critical agent of the whole revolutionary movement. We remember it was in Cuba in 1967 that the tri-continental movement was born, where Africa, Asia, Latin America, OSPA came out of that, where revolutionaries from all around the world came into Cuba. And the thing that people were talking about then, as we are talking about now, was the struggle to defeat colonialism. That was the primary understanding that we had. And you had various forces who participated in that, and that's what we have now. I think it's really important, and I call on everybody to investigate this question. Not only we're not just talking about colonialism as a policy of a particular country directed against a single people. Colonialism is a mode of production, and Che's activity, 2, 3, many Vietnams, is something that recognizes it as a colonial mode of production, recognizes it as something more than just the contradiction between the United States and Vietnam. His presence in Africa recognized that it was about more than just the United States and Vietnam. It was about more than just the United States and Cuba. His presence in Cuba making that revolution was also testament to that. His presence in Bolivia recognized that it's one revolutionary movement of the colonized peoples of the world fighting on different fronts. And that is a critical thing that we have to recognize from our perspective in the African People's Socialist Party. Once we recognize that, then we are less confused about why the United States attacked Venezuela. We are less confused about the characterization of the attack on Venezuela and the capture of the president, the sitting president, and his wife, and dragging them in chains to the United States. That was the United States faced with this contradiction that the colonizers have been faced with since the inception of colonialism. They've faced with this contradiction. On the one hand, these are countries that have defined themselves as based on democracy. They have defined themselves as countries that have been foundation of democracy on the one hand. On the other hand, they've had to justify what they've been doing in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, even the concept of the Americas. Even when you look at the United States, you're talking about a settler colony. You're talking about a place where the indigenous people live in concentration camps that are referred to as Indian reservations, where half of Mexico was stolen. We're talking about what the United States is threatening Mexico. It's done it before. Stole half of Mexico. That's where you get places like California, Texas, Utah, New Mexico, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the reality that we are confronted with. Compa talked about how in 1898, of course, the attack, the so-called Spanish-American War, that resulted in the existence of what is now known as Puerto Rico, the Guam, Cuba, all of these forces captured by the United States and enslaved the Philippines. This is how this thing got started. So a point I would make, comrades, is that we are looking at colonialism, sure, and we are looking, and that's something that's inescapable. You can't look at what's happening to the Palestinian people in occupied Palestine. When I say occupied Palestine, I'm talking about the entire territory. You have occupied Palestine. You have a territory that the European usurpers have taken as their own. They have the colonizer comes to power, and then the colonizer makes the law. But colonialism itself is illegitimate. So the colonizer steals from Venezuela, steals the oil, steals the land, steals the resources. And when the people of Venezuela take their land back, take their oil back, then they are caught, they are accused of being thieves. And so they call it an arrest to get around the issue of the war that they're making against Venezuela that violates U.S. constitutional law that says that only the Congress can declare war. They are trying to get around the issue of international law and by calling it not war. They say the only reason that U.S. Air Force, U.S. troops, U.S. military forces were there at all is because they went there to make an arrest because they had indicted the president. Now, I want to make it also clear that this current sitting president is not the one that initially indicted Maduro. That was being done by the Democratic Party president, Joe Biden. And we're talking about where they had a $25 million bounty on him at that time. And what we see with this president is a $50 million bounty. So that's just the colonialism under any guise is still colonialism. There's no such thing as a good colonialism, a moderate colonialism, etc. Colonialism is colonialism. It was colonialism under Biden. It was colonialism under Obama. It was colonialism under Harris. That's what we were looking at. And it's colonialism under this sitting president right now. So colonialism acts the way, in this case, it acts the way colonialism must act, because the people will not surrender their future, their human and material resources without resistance. It has to be accompanied. Colonialism is accompanied with extreme violence against the people. And in this instance, where colonialism, you have the foundation of settler colonialism here, you have the foundation of settler colonialism, Australia, and other places like that, but it's done under the guise of democracy, and they have to try to explain it away and to liquidate what it is that they're doing to us. And we have come under assault because the only thing we've tried to do is what the Venezuelans are trying to do, what Cuba has tried to do, what people who are in occupied Palestine have tried to do, is simply take back our resources, human and material resources, to recapture our happiness and the return of the resources that have been stolen from us. And no, you don't have an instance where President Maduro was attacking any other country. They are being attacked. And what we have is an instance where the whole colonial apparatus is attempting to define this narrative. So what our responsibility is, I think the problem that we are confronted with is that we are not fighting against colonialism, or we're not fighting against colonialism as a complete social system. You have a system that has its origin in the attack on Africa 600 years ago that initiated the forcible transfer, a dispersal of African people against our will through the far corners of the world, but they also transferred the African Revolution to all those places around the world. And for the first time in human history, we have a single world economy. And this world economy is what is a colonial economy. It is a colonial mode of production. And it is the thing that is basis for the relationship that we have now. We don't have to get a memo from somebody to say we struggle to defend our sisters and brothers in Venezuela. We organized in the African People's Socialist Party the first mass resistance, mass campaign to fight against what was happening to our brothers and sisters in Nicaragua. We in the United States, we did that without having known a Nicaraguan before. We did it because we knew that it was an assault on the colonial mode of production. Just as Che was able to say 2, 3, many Vietnams, we are able to say 2, 3, many Venezuelas, and we are also saying that we have a responsibility, and everybody has a responsibility to fight against colonialism and to recognize the colonialism that's killing Black people in this country, that's got the indigenous people living in concentration camps, that has stolen, that got people in the barrios living under terror, etc., on a regular basis. That's our struggle. All of that's our struggle, and we don't have to get a memo. We shouldn't have to get a memo. We have to recognize that, and we have to fight for the power. We have to unite with the struggle of African people. Certainly, that's the struggle we're involved in the African People's Socialist Party, not just here, but we're also in Africa, and we're also in the Caribbean, and we also throughout Europe. Our struggle is to reclaim our destiny, to reclaim our resources, both material and the genius of Africa has to be reclaimed as well. So everywhere we are, we talked about what is our assignment. Our assignment is to, first of all, unite with every struggle that we are making here within the United States itself, to the indigenous people, the African people, all of the indigenous people that include Mexicans and others, where they've got troops at the southern border, National Guard troops at the southern border, etc., because they have this contradiction of the people coming across that southern border, and the prediction that by 2045, white people in this country, the settlers, will be a minority. And that is a contradiction. That is the basis, the reason they cannot allow the Palestinians to come back to return to Palestine. Because they become a minority, and that is the greatest evidence of the crime that's being committed against the colonized people in Palestine and the colonized peoples within the United States itself. So I just want to express appreciation. We have to do everything we can to support the struggles of the colonized, and that's what we're looking at. We're not just talking about free speech, we're talking about anti-colonial free speech, which is critical. So thank you, comrades, and adelante siempre. Uhuru.
Uhuru Chairman. Wow, just really want to salute that. Just salute your presentation, your leadership. On the question of what is to be done, and I just want to unite with the assignment, that you've given us, and that the African liberation struggle and the African People's Socialist Party, has always been about uniting with every struggle, that we see, in terms of how colonialism is representing itself, and in all of its iterations. And so I just really want to salute, speaking on behalf of the African working class. And I also want to just unite with you in terms of all the presentations that we've heard on today. And we also, I don't know if Anne is in place, but we do want to just, remind everybody to go to handsoffforwho.org/donate. Donate to this fight back so that we can continue to build this, this united front, and to build this fight back against the U.S. colonial states' attack on the African liberation struggle as it exists here within the U.S., within, the United States. And also, were you going to say something, Chairman? I saw you lean in. Maybe not.
Oh, I was just typing something in there.
Okay. Yeah.
The comrade mentioned that Che
Yes.
was in Gaza, and
Yes.
so was Malcolm X in Gaza in 1964.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Comrade put that in the chat. Thank you, Libre. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and this is clear that, at the time with, 2, 3, many Vietnams, this was when the world, all the struggles were, revolution was the main trend in the world, as we say. And so we salute this struggle. And we want to invite people to also join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. You can go to handsoffforwho.org/coalition and click the join button to become a member of this fight back. So we do have some donations that have come in, and I just want to give a quick update on where we're at, and then we're going to move to our next speaker. And the last I checked, and perhaps we'll get an update a little bit later, we will. We have raised $317, and we have 685 remaining. So I want to salute and thank everybody who has gone to handsoffforwho.org to contribute to the Uhuru 3 Fight Back and appeal. Uhuru N.
Uhuru Mwezi, and Uhuru Chairman, thank you so much just for clarifying everything so clearly, making it very easy for all of us to understand, and for creating organization that everyone can participate in.
Yes.
So we'd like to welcome Comrade Paulo. He is the co-founder of Los Ronderos de las Redes. He's based in the US, and he'll be speaking on Peru, the Peruvian diaspora, and Latin America. Uhuru, Paulo.
Uhuru, Comrade Ann. Uhuru, SG Mwezi. Salute to the Chairman Amali Yeshitela for his incredible and profound words for today's webinar. And I also want to salute to our comrade Libre Sankara for speaking on this webinar, as I invited him, as he shares our vision here, and speaking on Barikan, Gaza, where he's currently located in, and the African front too. 3 years ago, there was another democratically elected leader in South America who was abducted and incarcerated. So it was another victim of a US-backed coup. That leader is the legitimate president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, who still remains as a political prisoner in his country. And there should be an image coming up. And so this looks very familiar to how it was against the Uhuru 3, where the police forces actually raised their arms at gunpoint at the president and the first family as they were trying to flee to the Mexican embassy, which fortunately the first family were able to be granted to exile in Mexico City. And on the day of the egregious attack on Venezuela's sovereignty and the abduction of Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores, Castillo expressed his deep solidarity with the people of Venezuela, its Bolivarian revolutionary government, and the two aforementioned political prisoners. So the coup tactic of kidnapping and imprisoning a foreign leader to overthrow their sovereign state is not new. The imperialists have done this to Jean-Bertrand Aristide in Haiti, Imran Khan in Pakistan, the aforementioned Pedro Castillo in Peru, pictured here with when he was a president and with a big portrait of Tupac Amaru, our indigenous martyr before the state of Peru was created. The Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab as well, he was kidnapped not only once but twice in Cape Verde, and then was transported to the U.S. As a political prisoner. And now President Nicolas Maduro and the Primera Combatiente Celia Flores. We can even look back in the history of the 533 years of anti-colonial resistance across Abya Yala, where the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro ambushed and abducted the last Inca emperor, Atahualpa, for ransom. And when the ransom was fulfilled in gold and silver, the Spanish still executed him and plundered the rest of the Inca civilization to supplant with the viceroyalty of Peru in order to colonize the indigenous peoples of the Andes and the Amazon, with a proxy government that was subservient to the Spanish monarchy. I mentioned this to make the point that colonialism never ended, as the Chairman Amale Shatela understands in our shared worldview. We still live under a vicious system of colonial exploitation of the global South for the benefit of Europe and North America. The U.S. still has the island colonies like Puerto Rican and Guam. It still occupies Hawaii, stolen Mexican territory, and Cuba's Guantanamo Bay, which has to be mentioned that Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores were transported to before arriving to Brooklyn, New York. It has over 800 military bases throughout the world, ready to bring the planet to its knees in an apocalyptic World War III scenario. Many of Trump's actions point to the imitation of historical moments of the infamous legacies of U.S. presidents, such as James M. Monroe, going back to the Monroe Doctrine, now the Donroe Doctrine, Theodore Roosevelt, going back to the Roosevelt Corollary, and now the Trump Corollary, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush during the war on drugs, and his son, George W. Bush, going to the war on terror. When Pete Hegseth said America is back, he means the return of illegal and brutal actions that flies over international law to achieve their means of colonial dominance. It is their peace is through strength. It's their Pax Americana, as they say, Pax Britannica, Pax Romana in the previous empires. With Marco Rubio in Trump's inner circle, we can expect that they will carry out their threat to further forcibly oust the revolutionary governments of Cuba and Nicaragua soon. They want to keep isolating these countries and punish the anti-imperialist left for their role in progressing the multipolar world, along with China, Russia, and Iran. It may be this year or next year, or even Trump's final year in office when they will invade Cuba and Nicaragua. And so the US is a rogue nation that calls other countries rogue nations because they deviate from its geopolitical hegemonic agenda of global domination and subjugation. The US violates human rights domestically and internationally on a daily basis. Regarding the home front, where US citizens and non-citizens alike face brutal repression under ICE and military occupation, these extrajudicial killings in the concentration camps and out in the streets mirrors the same oppression that Latin Americans faced under US-backed dictatorships. So looking back into Peru, we faced massacres that were numbered to 80 people. On January 9th was our most deadliest massacre that took place in the provincial province of Juliaca, Peru, where 18 were killed for protesting against the first phase of the dictatorship that usurped the presidency after the US-backed coup against Pedro Castillo, and he was taken as a political prisoner. And so we have so many martyrs across the Abya Yala that we have to look into how the diaspora functions, why they're here. They were forced to migrate. They were displaced to these war-torn regions and these atrocities that their U.S.-backed dictatorships committed. The U.S. and Israel want ultra-right exiles who align with their colonial vision of their homelands, which is why they have close partnerships with the Iranian family of the dictatorial Shah and the extremist Venezuelan Maria Corina Machado. So we have to fight back against what they are saying. They're saying that this is on behalf of the people of Iran, on the behalf of the people of Venezuela, but they're really sharing the same goals as the U.S. empire, where they are the loyalists to their cause. Back then, and during the times of Simon Bolivar and the struggle for independence throughout the Americas, we call them the Royalistas, who were loyal to the Spanish monarchy, loyal to the Spanish Empire. Here, in the context of the U.S., they were the loyalists versus the patriots. And so we have to understand that these are also the same people. These are the same the loyalists to the colonial empire versus those who are patriotic, like Comandante Hugo Chavez, who are fighting for their sovereignty, dignity of their people, for the liberation of the indigenous lands, and to decolonize it. And so there are those the factions who are the pro-imperialist ultra-right, what we call in the Latin America the Vende Patrias, and the country zealots in English. But here in the context of the U.S., we call them the gusanos here in the U.S. And so we have to understand that, of course, the Latin Americans are not a monolith, and these are two important factions in the political sphere that have divided the Latin America into supporting the U.S. faction into government and fighting for sovereignty on the other hand. And so it's either liberation or colonial subjugation in the end. So what we want to say is that Trump, Venezuela will be your Vietnam, no te metas. From the barrios of Caracas to the boroughs of New York, the people demand the immediate freedom of Nicolas Maduro and Dr. Celia Flores. Maduro, aguanta, el pueblo se levanta. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Peru, hands off Venezuela, hands off Iran. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air, US out of everywhere. Alerta, alerta, alerta que camina. La espada de Bolívar por América Latina. Y tiembla, y tiembla, y tiembla el imperialista. Que América Latina se vuelve socialista. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Compa, I'm gonna have to assign you to pull together all of our chants. I just want to say that right now because that's very powerful, and we can discuss that obviously in our meetings. But that's just really want to appreciate that report and your solidarity, Comrade Paulo, the work of Los Ronderos and the work that you have done to be everywhere that you can, physically, boots on the ground. With all of these struggles, and just want to appreciate your report in terms of reminding us of the attacks on President Petro Castillo and the people of Peru. And I just want to salute your work in this coalition, in the committee, and thank you, comrade, so much. So, just really want to salute all of the speakers and the representatives in this webinar. We are building for a larger conference of sort where we can continue to build this international anti-colonial human rights organization. And so you'll be hearing more about that, in the coming days and in today's program. But, on that note, it's, really a great honor for me to bring up our next speaker, a former organizer in SNCC, the, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and a director of the Malcolm X Center and WMXP Community Radio. I want to, bring up with the great honor Comrade Afia Wangaza, who will be speaking on the response of the UN and the international community in regards to the attacks on Venezuela. And it is a great honor to have Comrade Sister Afia on the call, who has, wears many hats and has been standing with the Uhuru 3 since day one. So Uhuru, comrade, it's great to see you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, sister, how are you?
I'm great. Wonderful. Great to see you.
I want to I want to thank you all for calling this session. Many of us have been at our wits' end trying to figure out exactly what it is that we ought to be doing, can be doing, and what's going to make a difference. And at the same time, at feeling at a loss for effectiveness. So, and to put all of the pieces together, put together the historical context, and to be able to name the moment. This is another moment when the people of the world are rising up, as it's been said in the past, to resist colonialism. I have been to Nicaragua, to Venezuela. In fact, I was in Venezuela when Maduro was elected the first time. And it was at that time that the Venezuelan people invited delegations from around the world to come and to watch and monitor the election. And it was, according to the Jimmy Carter Inspection Center, the most honest election that he had ever observed. Number one. Number two is that it was the first, if not the first, one of the first election, electronically controlled elections where the person had to show up, have their picture ID, and have their thumbprint on the machine, and it had to match at headquarters, not at the polling place, but at headquarters, which was way far away. And the people at headquarters couldn't even see who it was, other than to be able to see that it matched. That's all they could see. So the notion that there was an election that Maduro didn't win, I have a great many reservations about that. I would also point out that we had an opportunity while we were there to visit the barrio, to visit the favelas, to visit the poor people who had been neglected and who had been participating in voting on the idea that they would get party patronage. With Chavinista, it was only necessary to be a citizen. The electoral process was an electoral process from the ground up, from the revisal of the Constitution, which was drafted by an assembly that was elected by the people, and that was where the people were surveyed, and that reflected the will of the people. Far more and something different from what was happening in this country. I want to thank the speakers who've come on before me. I especially want to express my support of the people from Cuba, because we know as soon as they dropped down in Venezuela, Cuba was next. And if it wasn't directly next, it certainly had the tremors of knowing that it was on the list. So we appreciate the moment that you all have created where we can reunite around the world. I also want to call attention to the fact that come July, when the lies and the myth will be flying, that we want to talk about and call attention to the 250 years of murder, mayhem, rape, robbery, pillage, and plunder that we have all been subject to as a result of colonialism and at the hands of the Euro-Americans and their allies. So we thank you. We look forward to continuing to support you and overthrowing the global system of colonialism. Thank you.
Uhuru, wow. Thank you so much, Comrade Sister Afia, for your statement, for your leadership. And as Comrade Ann, our co-MC, put in the chat, your on-the-ground reports, they are always so powerful. And it is, helping us to, as we understand, like the world is getting smaller and because, through this organizing. And so these reports are, essential. And I just want to reiterate your calling on us to name the moment. Like that's real. Really important for us to understand in terms of, resisting colonialism, as you said, and to reiterate what Comrade Paulo said about, Venezuela, this will be their Vietnam. And so we have to, this is our time to really capture that. And so thank you for that report, even, on the ground during the elections in Venezuela. And I want to thank everybody who has been donating. And I want to thank some people who are on joining us really quick before we bring up our next speaker, who is already on camera, one of the Uhuru three, Chair Jesse Neville, Uhuru Comrade. Anne, were you going to say something? And then I just wanted to salute some of our speakers, some of the other participants. I saw you unmute.
Oh, I'll wait until you are done with the salutes.
Okay, so I just wanted to salute. Great. Okay, perfect. Sheila Hamanaka, who is on the call with Pacifica Fightback and a force who we have to salute right after the Uhuru 3 were attacked, was really instrumental in making sure that was put out on the airwaves. And so we want to salute Comrade Sister Sheila Hamanaka and just the work that she has done, on the front in terms of, the media, because we did call out the media earlier, but we are clear about who is on the side supporter of the Uhuru movement. And also comrades on African soil, Comrade Zakele, who is in occupied Azania, and Comrade Finbar, who has also joined us earlier, and I think is still on in Nigeria. So salute to you, comrades, as well. And I will turn it to you, Comrade Ann, to introduce our next speaker, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade Mwezi, thank you. So it's my privilege to introduce Jesse Neville, one of the Uhuru three, the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and he will be speaking on the FARA and anti-conspiracy campaign. Uhuru, Jesse.
Uhuru, thank you so much for the introduction, Comrade Ann. Salute to you. Salute to Chair Mwezi, our powerful leadership in the hands-off Uhuru anti-colonial free speech fight back, and all of the speakers today. It's an honor to be here in this really important discussion. As was stated, my name is Jesse Neville. I am a proud member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the national chair of our mass organization, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, organizing in the white community for reparations to African people and white solidarity with Black power under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And I want to extend my deepest salute to my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela, the entire African People's Socialist Party, and the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess. And I am also, along with Chairwoman Penny and the chairman, who was the primary target of the attack by the U.S. government, I am honored to be one of the Uhuru three. Because I will be speaking about the question of law and specific laws, I want to start off by, as I usually do, quoting Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who actually made this statement many times, including earlier in this presentation today. The chairman said that the colonizer makes the law, but colonialism is illegitimate. And the colonizer makes the law and breaks the law whenever they want. And the chairman pointed out that none of this started with Donald Trump. And one quick thing I wanted to mention, earlier there was reference to Trump's threat to invoke the Insurrection Act in response to the uprisings that are happening right now in Minnesota. And I saw a video some people might have seen of Trump earlier today, I think, saying that 48% of American presidents have invoked the Insurrection Act. I don't know where he got that number from, but it has been invoked by 17 presidents in US history. And I think it's notable to look at who some of them were. In fact, Lyndon Johnson invoked the Insurrection Act 3 times in the 1960s, each time to attack and suppress African rebellions and uprisings, anti-colonial rebellions that were happening throughout the US, including in Selma, Detroit, and all throughout the country on April 5th, 1968, the day after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So just wanted to mention that. And on the subject of today's event, say that I express my total unity with the position of the party and Chairman Omali Shatella and hands off Uhuru in stating my total unconditional solidarity with the people of Venezuela against the vicious colonialist, imperialist attacks by the US government and the kidnapping of their legitimate president, Nicolas Maduro, and the first combatant, Celia Flores. The chairman said it perfectly that when Trump says the Venezuelans stole America's oil, it is an instance of the thief screaming, "Stop thief." And the same goes for these bogus charges that they've brought against Maduro and Flores, charging them with conspiracy to traffic cocaine and possess machine guns. This is the cocaine trafficker, the drug trafficker screaming, "Stop drug trafficking." What the US government has done is a crime, even according to their own laws. It is in violation of international law and even, as has been mentioned, of the United States' own federal constitutional law. The International Association of Democratic Lawyers pointed out that the attacks constitute flagrant violations of fundamental principles of international law, in particular Articles 1 and 2 of the United Nations Charter, and amount to a grave violation of Article 2, Section 4, requiring states to refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, and that they constitute illegal aggression, which was considered the supreme international crime at Nuremberg, along with violating the right of the people of Venezuela to self-determination as guaranteed by Article 1, Section 2 of the UN Charter. And then, as the chairman pointed out, the invasion of Venezuela and the kidnapping of Maduro and Flores was also in violation of the US's own constitution, which requires the president to seek and obtain congressional approval before declaring a war on a country, which the US government attempted to evade by characterizing the invasion as a law enforcement operation. And in this way, the attack on Venezuela and the attack on the Uhuru 3 are mirror images of each other. Each of them attacks on colonized people's struggle for national liberation by an effort to remove their leadership using the cover of law and law enforcement to justify a politically motivated exercise of counterinsurgency repression. The cover of law, the narrative of fighting crime as a justification for this illegitimate colonial warfare against African and colonized people, as the chairman pointed out, did not start with Trump. Biden sponsored the omnibus crime bill. Clinton campaigned on putting 100,000 more police on the streets of this country, all under the banner of fighting against crime. So this brings us to why the case of the Uhuru 3, the struggle to push back against the attacks on the chairman and the Uhuru movement continues to be, as Efia Nwangaza once said, the tip of the spear of the anti-colonial struggle for anti-colonial free speech, because the attack on the chairman is an attack on your right to stand with Venezuela. It is an effort to criminalize you for even speaking out in support of Venezuela. That is what the stakes are that hang in the balance of the Uhuru 3 case and its pending appeal. It is a struggle that seeks to create a precedent that will empower all of us who fight to defend and expand the democratic space for anti-colonial free speech. The appeal brief is fully briefed now in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. The next step is awaiting for oral arguments. And this is why the campaign to overturn the Foreign Agent Registration Act and the conspiracy laws are so critical and more urgent now than ever before. The Foreign Agent Registration Act is a political law created to criminalize even the kind of discussion happening in this meeting, discussion about solidarity with Venezuela, solidarity with Cuba. There are actually state-level foreign agent registration acts laws now on the books in states throughout the United States, including the state of Florida, that go beyond the federal law by explicitly naming what they consider adversarial nations, that they will target anyone who has any kind of relationship to these countries. And surprise, surprise, the list of adversarial countries is Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Syria, and then they actually specify the Maduro regime of Venezuela. They don't just say Venezuela, they say the Maduro regime of Venezuela. So any day that these laws are allowed to remain on the books is a day that you are under threat of being raided, handcuffed, put on trial, and thrown in prison because of what you say and what you think. So we call on all lawyers, legal workers, researchers, free speech advocates to join the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, build the campaign to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org/outreach and download our social media posts that talk more about this campaign. And I want to close by saying that when President Maduro spoke at his arraignment, he said he is still the president. He is a prisoner of war. He is absolutely correct. We say free Maduro, free Flores, free all political prisoners and prisoners of war. Hands off Venezuela, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, comrade, thank you so much, comrade Jesse Neville, of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and one of the Uhuru Three, and also a co-chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Latin America, Hands Off Uhuru Legal Front, the Legal Defense Support Committee, and so that call for all of us and our various expertise to join this fight back to push back against these conspiracy laws, which we know are bogus, but are able to be executed because of colonialism. But we have a responsibility to forward it on every struggle. And so I just really want to salute that. And thank you for that update on the appeal, comrade, as well, Uhuru. So we do have, we have just two more speakers to present. One of them is Chairwoman Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And just before her, I want to see if Comrade Zaki Baruti is on. Were you going to say something? Okay, Penny.
No,
that's
no,
what you were.
I forgot. I came on too early. So.
Uhuru. Well, it is a great honor to introduce this comrade, President General of the Universal African Peoples Organization, or UAPO, Comrade Zaki Baruti, who will speak on African and Venezuelan unity, and who is based on the ground in St. Louis, and some of the first boots on the ground following the Uhuru 3 attack on the staircase of the chairman's home. So Uhuru, Comrade Zaki, it's great to see you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, and it's great to see you, and you continue doing the great work that you're doing. First and foremost, let me say this has been a powerful afternoon of information, and I think everyone that's on this line know that we got a great historical responsibility, and that responsibility is really in that we are in the belly of the beast, is to cut the hands off the beast as well as the head of the beast. So death to colonialism, death to this beast that we are presently dealing with. Our organization, Universal African Peoples Organization, I'm proud to say that just most recently in October, we had representatives from the Cuban embassy here in St. Louis to lay out exactly the kind of on-ground work that's been done in terms of maintaining the revolution in Cuba, as well as encouraging us to work to end the embargo against Cuba. Also, working in conjunction with the African People's Socialist Party, we most recently held a press conference, which, by the way, many of the press didn't show because they want people to be confused and not understanding the implications of the attack on Nicaragua. But we were able to still get it on Facebook. And I just want to read a quick statement that was put out there by one of our sister organizations, which we totally agree with the statement. And that sister organization is called the Organization for a Black Struggle, and you can just slide our name in there, the Universal African Peoples Organization, continues to strongly condemn the gangster actions of the Trump administration against the sovereign country of Venezuela. These actions included the targeted military assaults on alleged drug boats, the seizure of oil tankers, and the recent kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cecilia Flores. We recognize that the racist attacks on Black and brown sovereign nations directly mirror domestic policies that systematically target Black and brown communities within our own borders. It is time to intensify the efforts to hold the Trump regime accountable for its abuse of constitutional laws at home and its disregard for international laws abroad. The president is an established threat to peace and stability and must be brought to justice. His pursuit of bringing the perverted model of democracy to sovereign countries defies their right to self-determination. It also serves as a blatant cover for theft of land and the plunder of natural resources that ultimately will only enrich Trump and the global corporations that support him. We stand in solidarity with the international cause for justice and the genuine respect for the autonomy of all nations. The war criminals in the White House must be brought to justice. And when we also, I'm proud to say that our organization published a quarterly newspaper called the African News World. And in one of our most recent editions, we called out the United States presidency for what it is, and that is a criminal enterprise. Also, I want to remind people as we look at the attack on different nations that are pushing for their own self-determination, we cannot forget what Obama did with the destruction. One of the greatest attacks on the continent of Africa was the destruction of Libya and the murder of Muammar Gaddafi, whom I was blessed to have met him. Also, we know that what they are setting out is a playbook that not only targets Venezuela, as already been said, Cuba, Nicaragua, which also I was blessed to meet the president of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, as well as flamed the insurgency, the CIA in Iran to try to take down the Iranian Revolution. We say, as the slogan, one, two, many Venezuelans, because we got to open up this front across the globe, as I had opened up my statement that we need to cut the hands off of this colonial system. And as in the biblical scripture of David cutting the head off of Goliath, because the U.S. is the Goliath of the world in terms of biblical terms today. So we look forward to supporting solidarity to expose what is taking place. And again, with only one goal in mind, and that is to see the end of this madness that's perpetrated day in and day out, 24/7, not only here in this country, but throughout the world. And also remind people that we cannot forget what happened in Chile with the overthrow of Brother Allende and the killing of Patrice Lumumba in terms of in the Congo. So we have to bring to the people all of the crimes, including the enslavement of us as a people, the territorial takeover of Mexico and others, that it's our duty. It's just our duty to bring about a just world. So that's my comments, as well as if I could, for our brothers and sisters that was on from Venezuela, I don't know, pose a question for them. And my question was going to be, just as you see some of the actions that's taking place in Iran, which is a result of the excruciating sanctions with the taking of the oil tankers, what kind of impact has that been economically within Venezuela, as well as has Russia or China, what have been their responses in terms of the attack on Venezuela? So I'd like to just throw that out if you can bring them back up and respond to those two questions.
Thank you so much. Two things. I want to appreciate your statement, Comrade Zaki Broody, and just your call for that this is our time, and really want to salute the Universal African Peoples Organization for its work, like you said, your newspaper, and reminding us about Libya, Chile, Congo. This is all happening under the colonial mode of production, and we have a responsibility or a duty, as you said, to forward this struggle. And to your question, to the comrades, yes, Chairwoman Penny, you are up next, and if you are okay, I'd like to, see if it's appropriate time to have those comrades respond. I think Fravia she had to get off, I know, a little earlier, but Comrade Jesus, if you wanted to respond to that, and if you can't right now, please use the chat. Okay, I see you on. Great. Thank you, Penny. All right. So go ahead, Jesus, if you wanted to respond directly. Yeah. Oh, hold on. I think you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. But it could be me, because I know I've been having issues with my audio. Can anyone else hear Jesus?
No, I can't. I cannot.
Okay. Yeah, we cannot hear you right now, Jesus. Do you want us to come back to you? We'll come back?
Oh,
Okay.
he's muted. He's muted. Let me unmute.
Yeah, but he was unmuted and it was still, yeah, he's unmuted now, but we can't hear you. Okay. Okay, you're gonna rejoin. Okay, great. Sounds good, Uhuru. So, Zaki, hold tight, and if you type that question in the chat, or just because I caught some of it but not the whole thing, I want to make sure that we get your question answered. So, Chairwoman Penny, I'll turn it to you. Yeah, you want to go? I see you unmuted, Zaki. Go ahead. Okay. I'm kind of reading lips right now, but you're muted, Zaki. But we're gonna go to Chairwoman Penny.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
just saying I'm not good with typing in chat.
I
So
know. Yeah, go ahead. Say your question one more time if you can. Just,
I,
concisely.
my question is twofold. In terms
Yes.
of the impact of them seizing the oil tankers and its impact on the economics within Venezuela. And then secondly, in terms of the role and the response of Russia and China to the attack on the sovereignty of Venezuela.
Great. Thank you. Sounds good. Those are great questions that I'd like for us to have time to address that. So thank you, Zaki, for reiterating that. We'll go to Chairwoman Penny while Comrade Jesus is working on his audio. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman Wazy. Well, I just really salute this powerful, powerful event today, and all the speakers, so moving, so powerful. And I want to salute my leadership, the African People's Socialist Party, Deputy Chair Ona Zinea Shatella, and my leadership Chairman Omali Shatella, who has fought for the liberation of Africa and African people and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world for his entire life. As has been said, he has never deviated from that as his main goal, his main everything that he has dedicated his life to. And I am very, very honored to be under the leadership of Chairman Omali Shatella and the African People's Socialist Party, who has taught me as a white person to begin to see the world through the eyes of the colonized and the oppressed. That is something that we can do, and that we salute the people of Venezuela. We salute President President Maduro and first combatant Celia Flores. And the U.S. has absolutely no right to do anything to intervene in the self-determination of the people of Latin America or anywhere in the world, which we know that is what the U.S. does. I am one of the Uhuru Three, targeted as part of being targeted as an attack on Chairman Omali Shatella. They wanted to try to separate Jesse and myself, Comrade Jesse and myself, from the chairman, which they did not do. They were not able to do at all whatsoever. So, it is very, very powerful to see here today the building of, as the chairman said, one united movement of colonized people around the world. And it is, again, a tremendous honor to be here among all of you who are either part of Venezuela or part of the support for Venezuela because you are also part of the colonized people on the planet Earth who are fighting for your national liberation. The chairman said, created the African People's Solidarity Committee as the responsibility of white people to go out into the white population to recognize that we have to take this message that the chairman is talking about of colonialism, the colonial mode of production, the fact that we live in a system built on the enslavement of African people, the kidnapping of African human beings for 600 years, the kidnapping and genocide of the indigenous people whose land this is, and all oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. We can be part of that. We have to acknowledge the fact of colonialism, of this thing, the colonial mode of production, that everything that we have, this entire system, colonialism, like the chairman said, is not a period of time. It's not something from the past. It is the essence, the DNA of the system that we live in. And if there is colonialism, if we understand that, what the chairman is saying, then there are colonizers. And it is true that in every aspect of life, the difference between the incomes of white people versus African and colonized people inside the borders of the United States and around the world is vast. The income, the life expectancy, the infant mortality, the every single aspect of life, the housing, the conditions, the prison, the mass imprisonment, all of the conditions that African people face versus the conditions of life for white people. That's colonialism. That is two different realities, two different ways of experiencing the world, and that white people many white people we know want to take a stand. They want to do something. They want to be part of the future, and we can do this. But we have to start here. We have to recognize that when African and indigenous people have power, there won't be colonialism around the world. There won't be these conditions against what the U.S. is doing to Venezuela, Nicaragua, all throughout Africa and the world, that when African and indigenous people have their land back, their power back, when they have reparations, that the world will be free. There will be freedom for all people. And that, as the chairman said, fascism is when white people face some of the same conditions that African people face every day. But the chairman has said fascism is an anomaly. Colonialism is the everyday norm for the majority of the people on the planet Earth. So, we have to take up this. We can take this up under the leadership of the Uhuru movement of the African People's Socialist Party. Join Hands Off Uhuru, join Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and jump off this pedestal and be part of changing the world in a principled way under the leadership of the African Liberation Movement in unity with all the oppressed and colonized peoples on the planet Earth. And yes, we do owe reparations. Reparations is the return of stolen resources, stolen land, and this is in our interest. It is part of a self-criticism, a principled self-criticism that we can make to African people, to Venezuelan people, to the people on the planet Earth. And it enables us to join humanity once and for all, jump off this pedestal and be part of changing the world under the leadership of the colonized, that is building a new world that we all can be part of. Uhuru and Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, reparations now.
Uhuru. Wow, thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny, Chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and one of the first white people, of the colonizer nation to take up this, responsibility to work under the leadership of the party of the chairman for now, I believe, Penny, we could say 50 years of the African People's Solidarity Committee, or, and your work under the chairman's leadership. So I just want to appreciate that statement and salute and stand with you and the Uhuru Three, in your fight back, and to say, join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, join the African People's Solidarity Committee, let's be on the right side, as we wage this struggle. So thank you, comrade. And let's see if Comrade Jesus was able to come back on. How is your sound doing, Jesus?
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Great. So you heard the question, and after you, we're going to go to our appeal and see how much we've raised in today's, webinar, but we wanted to give a chance for you to respond
Yes,
to the questions.
I hear the questions, and I agree
Perfect.
with what Jesse just said. I mean, we are all victims of colonialism and capitalism, and we need to unite to fight, that terrible mistake of humanity. So it's extremely important that we realize that disregard of where you live, if you live in the US or if you live in Venezuela or any other places in the war of Palestine, we are all victims of colonialism. And sooner or later, the system will eat us if we don't take actions to change the system. So it's extremely important in that sense to build this solidarity that we have been building over the years between Venezuela and the Uhuru movement, and that's a result of the clearness of of concepts and ideology. And going back to the question, I just want to say that the U.S. seizures of oil tankers has been keep happening. That's a clear indication that the U.S. do not control Venezuela. Of course, that seizure represents a small fraction of all the oil shipments that that Venezuela sent abroad. Some studies have been saying the U.S. military is only only been able to seize approximately somewhere between 5 and 10% of the oil shipments that we have been sending since December, when they began with this crazy operation. And of course, that creates some tension within Venezuelan oil production because oil production is complex, and if you don't if you don't send shipments of oil, your inventories keep rising, and if your inventories has a limit, and if you reach that limit, the oil rigs are going to need to be closed because you cannot produce more oil. So that's one of the tensions that we have with the U.S., one of many. I have proposed a few days ago that maybe we can use that as a negotiation chip. I mean, I propose that maybe if the U.S. keep pressing us with that strategy of robbing our oil tankers, we might donate that oil to Petrocaribe countries in the Caribbean, or even Sahel countries, if they send their ships. Of course, that won't be good for Venezuelan economy, but it's going to be better than stop oil rigs production. So that's something that one have to consider. And in the case of China and Russia, we appreciate, and they have been extremely supporting of what the U.S. has been doing against us in recent months and years. But we cannot rely on them to come and defend ourselves, because those times do not exist anymore. And there's also, one have to be very careful. There's also this narrative about similar to that narrative that Delcy Rodriguez is a traitor, and that she betrayed President Maduro, which is a big lie. There's also this narrative saying that China and Russia didn't do enough, and they are bad actors and things like that. And that narrative also plays against the unity of the global South to fight imperialism. So I just wanted to add that. Un abrazo, compas, and Uhuru.
Uhuru, compa, thank you so much. Yes, un abrazo, and for that statement, or just that response, and just a little insight in terms of the strategy that is happening and why it's so important for us to build, this organization of fronts, and to be able to talk about our resources on our own terms, as well. And so thank you so much for that question, President General Zaki, and for your response, Comrade Jesus. Uhuru, comrades. So just really want to salute this powerful, webinar and organization that is being, forwarded. And I want to bring up our chair of the budget committee and the resources, the fundraising for the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. This is Comrade Amanda, who is also a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement Vice Chair, and wears many hats, but has played a really crucial role in terms of helping us, keep this as transparent as possible, keep the whole process transparent in terms of how we're raising the resources, where they're going to. And right now we're in what we've called like phase 3 of the Uhuru 3 campaign. So Comrade Amanda is going to give us an update on that, and who's donated. So Uhuru, Comrade, great to see you. Uhuru.
Moisey, Vice Chair Penny, Chairman Ramali Shatella. I want to appreciate all of you as well as all of the amazing presentations that we've heard today and echo the call, hands off Venezuela. As has been stated before, we do have a goal for this webinar to raise $1,000. And I just want to take a moment to really appreciate all of you who have contributed so far. We have raised $660 out of that goal and only have 340 left to raise. So I want to appreciate Lee, who gave 40, Janine, who gave 25, Johan, who gave 100, Maureen, who gave 50, Penny, who gave 100, Molefi, who gave 40, Eva, who gave 50, Camille gave 50, Comrade Sheila Hamanaka gave 10, Anne gave 10, Mark gave 50, Robert gave 10, Bakari gave 25, Afia Nwangaza gave 50, Indigo gave 25, and then Jesse matched him at 25 as well. So again, just $340 left to raise. I am going to contribute 50 myself. That brings us down to just $290 to go, and that is just 6 people matching me and giving $60. So I just want to, take a moment here. We do want to reach this goal. Kathy says, I gave 100 on the website. Uhuru, Kathy. Gonna look and make sure we receive.
And Uhuru, Comrade Amanda, while you're looking it up, I will pledge $60 on today. Uhuru. I'll match.
Our calculator, our takeover calculator is typing feverishly. That brings us to $130 left to raise. That is nothing. Want to encourage everyone to go to the website, go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate and contribute. Right now, we have paid the lawyers for the Uhuru 3, their retainers for the appeal. The next phase of what we would need to pay for, if approved by the judge, I believe, would be oral arguments. So that's what these funds are going towards. And again, that's a really important part of the appeal where the lawyers are able to actually go to the judges making the decision about the appeal and argue their case. And for those of you that were in attendance of the trial, you know how powerful the Uhuru 3 legal team is, in front of judges and in front of the prosecutors. They're just a fierce team. So that's a really important thing that we are able to do if those oral arguments are approved by the judge. So again, contribute today. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We only have $130 left to raise. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade, can you restate how much we've raised so far? Just one more time. I wanted to make sure I got that correct.
Yes, now we're at $870 raised.
Uhuru, so that's 130 left to go.
Yes.
I'm correct. Uhuru, comrades, well, just really want to salute everybody who has donated. That is just, tremendous. And you can make a pledge, or become a sustainer. I am a monthly sustainer. I think it's at $5 a month. And, all of that helps to, forward this this ongoing, need to fight back, through the economic front, because this is also how they attempt to crush us. But to that slide on there, Uhuru, together we will win. And I want to salute. These are comrades from the oral arguments back in October of 2023, I believe, when we first set foot in that courthouse. So, so they felt a little bit of it there, and it was a really powerful, show on in September of 2024. And I also wanted to salute Comrade Mark Friedman, who was on the ground at the pre-rally in August. And I meant to say that earlier. So I wanted to salute, everybody who was on the call, who was on the ground. Many of you who were on the ground right now were there. So we do have I think there was one other question before we move towards our announcements that we wanted to ask. And I'd like to also invite any of our speakers back up, because if there's any closing remarks that you'd like to make, as we I like to give time for our, our main speakers, especially the comrades in Venezuela, the chairman and others. But there was a question, Comrade Chair Jesse, to you from MQ, and I want to salute Comrade MQ, who is a long supporter with the Uhuru movement and has done tremendous work. The question is, it says, such important presentations, Uhuru Jesse, on what date was the Florida FARA state law expanded to include the Maduro government?
Uhuru. Just want to salute this incredible webinar, comrades Jesus, Flavia, Paulo, Afia, of course, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Zaki, Chairwoman Penny, you, Chairman Wazy, everybody that's spoken. It's been incredibly, incredibly powerful, and again, an honor to be here. Also want to thank everybody who's donated and contributed towards completing the victory of the Uhuru 3 fight back. The struggle is not over, as the chairman always says, so these resources are really important to continue this fight until victory. And yes, just really quick, so the Florida state level Foreign Agent Registration Act law was passed, I think, by the Florida Senate in 2024, and then it was put into effect in July of last year. And it wasn't expanded to include Venezuela and the Maduro regime. That was the language in the bill from the beginning. Most of the state level Foreign Agent Registration Act laws actually specify countries that they consider adversarial countries that they are targeting. Anyone who's accused of having some kind of relationship with them. So in that way, it goes beyond. It's more explicit than the federal version of the law. It's less ambiguous. The state level ones are explicit in naming these particular countries, the Maduro government of Venezuela being one of them.
Okay, Uhuru. Oh, am I unmuted? Great. Thank you so much, Comrade Chair Jesse. We are coming up to, we're at the last moments of our webinar for today. So I just wanted to bring up, I see Comrades Jesus and Paulo, you're also on the chairman. And if anyone has any last, statements, if anything, with brevity, if you can make sure that you do share your information in the chat so we can know how to get that out to everybody. And so thank you, Comrade. There was another question, which I think we might take even or continue to deepen. Like I said, we have our other comrades who are not on the call today, but could have spoke to some of this. But there was a question about, there was a statement. This is by Philip on YouTube. He says, Ben Franklin said the legal innovations of our U.S. Constitution were modeled on the Haudenosaunee Confederation and not on the British legal architecture. And Philip, he also asked, why is Trump targeting the Sioux? Nation. And so I think, this is, as we talked about even in this webinar in terms of, just the desperate attempt of colonialism to make itself relevant in this, in what we recognize as a victory for us, but a death sentence on colonialism. And so it will attack us on various areas and for any, reason, like someone said earlier, with impunity. And we have a responsibility here within the belly of the beast. And I think that's something that I hear even throughout today's webinar and this work is really building the U.S. front of the, the U.S. Revolutionary Front, because this is, we have to denounce what is happening, what this U.S. government is, doing, and we say no more genocide in our name, and we have that responsibility. So I just think that that's another question around, the indigenous, question that we can continue to bring into this forefront and support our others, who are out there on the ground doing the work to restore, liberation, peace and justice, and the question of reparations. So that was quite long-winded, but thank you so much, Philip, for tuning in on YouTube, and for everybody who has been, participating in this webinar, in this work. I want to just, comrades, if you have something to say, if you raise your hand, that will alert me even more. But Jesus, okay. Yes. Or my daughters would do some other type of heart. Yes. Uhuru. Un abrazo. This has been very powerful, Uhuru. And so I want to just, from the top to the, to the end of the program, I want to really thank and salute our comrades from Venezuela, Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa, Andreina Chavez, as well as a Venezuelan diplomat, Fravia Marquez, who was unable to stay to the end, but we want to really salute and appreciate her. And, to support the Bring Them Back campaign that was mentioned earlier, about, freeing President Maduro and First Combatant Celia Flores. I also want to salute our comrades and our, unionistas from Unión del Barrio, and just really salute you, comrades. Thank you, Comrade Guadalupe, for being on the call with us. Thank you, Comrade Libre, speaking on the Borica front, but also speaking on the ground in Gaza for the past couple of years. Thank you for joining us, comrades. Stay in touch. Thank you, comrades from the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee in Los Angeles, comrades Destiny Rivera for your powerful statement, and Comrade Mark Friedman for your work, your leadership, and your, and your statements over time, comrade. I want to salute the chairman for just providing the political overview for today, and, continuing to guide this anti-colonial struggle in this, in this lifetime, comrades. We will be free. So I just really want to salute my leadership, Chairman Amalia Shatella and the African People's Socialist Party, and Comrade Paulo, who spoke on the Peruvian front, reminding us about the capturing of President Petro Castillo and that struggle. We must get get behind all these struggles. Lastly, a couple more. I want to thank Comrade Afia Wangaza for her representation, as a representative, with the UN and speaking on behalf of the international community. Comrade Chair Jesse Neville and Chairwoman Penny Hess of the Uhuru 3, your solidarity, comrades, is an example, and we want to continue to, fight back and be victorious even in our appeal. Comrade Zaki Barudi of the Universal African Peoples Organization, we salute you, comrade, and want to continue to, forward the work of, of all Africans on the ground, building real organizations. So I want to thank all of our donors for our final update. Do we have an update on the numbers that we've raised, Comrade Amanda? If not, you can just repeat it one more time for me. Feel free to cut me off if needed. But I think what I have so far is that we have raised.
True.
Go ahead. Yep. I think go ahead.
True. We are now at $950 raised. So just 50
Hey.
go through. And we can thank MQ, who is going to give 40, as well as Janet, who's going to give 40 as well. Uhuru.
Wonderful. Uhuru, comrades, 50 more to go. Thank you, MQ and Janet. Salute to you, comrades. And I want to also just salute that. I see your hand, Comrade Paulo. So before we go to announcements, I'll turn it to you, Comrade Paulo, if you have any closing thoughts. And then we're going to also show a video on the way out. So we invite people to stay. It's just about 2 minutes, but it echoes the, what is really happening on the streets of Venezuela. And I see the chairman's hand. So let's go, Paulo, chairman, and then we'll move to announcements. Uhuru. Thank you, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Excellent webinar so far today, and great to hear that we're close to our fundraising goal. It's really important that we're staying focused on the Uhuru 3 case. And so some things that I wanted to mention as well is that the chairman, Amalia Shatella, previously said, actually on his first statement after the January 3rd attack, which is available on YouTube on the Burning Spear, already has over 21,000 views. He mentioned that we have to go beyond the protesting to reflect the times of the aggressiveness, the further escalations, the audacity of this imperialism and colonialism. And so I encourage that people come visit Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, and all of Latin America, and possibly in the future, as we have our Latin America committee growing, we could sponsor trips. We could help promote our Uhuru Solidarity members, anyone in part of the Uhuru movement to join us in Central America or South America or in the Caribbean. It's very important that we come to better understanding of these countries and go beyond the narrative that is presented to us in the mainstream media here in the United States, where and to get outside of the spaces where the exiles lived, like the Cuban Gusanos or the Venezuelan Vendevaches here, or even the Iranians. Who are chanting for bring back the Shah, the dictator monarchy. We have to go beyond those type of sentiment that is presented. That is all pro-regime change, of course. And so, if we can't get to these countries, then let's go to St. Louis, Missouri, and see the reparations legacy project. See the socialist project in St. Louis that is being created by the African People's Socialist Party. This is Chavismo being created here in the United States, in the belly of the beast, to create this what the chairman calls a dual power, a dual power to contest the over reaching the monopolistic U.S. Colonial empire. And so we in the belly of the beast are building socialism, starting with St. Louis, rebuilding the city, even especially since after the tornado hit on ground there, devastating the city. We are seeing our members every day as volunteers rebuilding the city, where the local government, the federal government, not to mention, have done little to nothing to help the people who are majority African people. So, and also to one last thing is that to also remember of Patrice Lumumba, as the other comrade mentioned before, as today is his anniversary. Patrice Lumumba of the Congo, who was ousted in this CIA with the Belgium intelligence he was dismembered, similar to how Tupac Amaru, our Peruvian martyr, was dismembered. But in the context for Peru, he was this was before our country was created during the colonial period of the Viceroyalty of Peru. Tupac Amaru was ripped to shreds by arm to limb, limb to limb, by the Spanish, showing how vicious the colonizers are to make an example of our people, and making an example of Nicolas Maduro today, Celia Flores today, Pedro Castillo, our people president, locked up for 11 years in Peru. They're trying to make an example out of our leaders, and we're still fighting. We see that the Chavismo is still resisting in against the colonialism, against the U.S. imperialism as well. And whilst other countries, such as my home country in Peru, are still fighting for our sovereignty, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua are defending the sovereignty. And that's very important that we have to stand with them. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Paulo. Yes, comrade, really powerful. Want to unite with everything that you just said, especially on your ending note regarding, the sovereignty of these, as the chairman says, this is a struggle between oppressor and oppressed nations. And I want to unite with that. And for your call to, how we talk about raising the, funding and supporting this, how we can be boots on the ground wherever needed. And so I think that's something that this committee and this work should, it's something we should definitely, talk about more and then build upon. So thank you so much, Comrade Paulo, for your contributions to today as well. And I'd like to bring up the chairman before we move to announcements. Uhuru. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation to everyone. There have been just extraordinary presentations that's being made up to now, and these presentations and this understanding is something that we have to have the ability to convey to our people everywhere we are located, and even beyond our own locations. There is not a good understanding now on just the depravity that we've had to experience for the birth of this social system that people refer to as capitalism, imperialism, but that created the colonial mode of production. Like 1/3 of all of the African people who existed on the continent of Africa were killed. Some 200 million of the 600 million people of the continent of Africa were killed during much of the European colonialism, something that's characterized as the dark days of Europe during that period. We recognize also that it's a process that dispersed Africans through various parts of the world, and it dispersed the African Revolution as well. And so while we say that we are obviously part of the African Revolution, but we recognize that we also are part of the Revolution of the Americas. So it's not just something that we do on the side or some kind of sideline thing that we do, but we are part of the Revolution of the Americas. And even as we move toward the total liberation of our people and the colonized people and people in Venezuela and the return of Comrade Nicolas, President Nicolas Maduro, and first combatant Celia Flores, even as we do that, we recognize that we have a responsibility to extend the actual anti-colonial revolution everywhere. And we detest the cowardly liberals who watch what's happening in the various countries here and globally, who watch it, who see it, and are too timid to denounce it. We recognize also that the 2, 3 many Vietnams that Che talked about, that is quite applicable for us to have picked up that slogan and applied it to Venezuela. It is recognition that we need, wherever we are located, to build the anti-colonial movement in our cities, in our neighborhoods, on our campuses, and because we have to give the colonizers the impossible task of trying to fight us on every front in the world. So I want to express appreciation to everybody for being here. Again, 2, 3, many Venezuelans, we are winning. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Yes, 2, 3 many Venezuelans, we are winning, and we're gonna just really want to salute and appreciate that those closing remarks, Chairman. And if comrades want to be on camera for the last part, I'll make sure I can try to grab a screenshot or something of just this really powerful, body that's on right now. And we're gonna move to our announcements, and I'm sure our calculating team will let me know if we've met our goal. But at last we have, raised, almost $50 short of our goal on today. So we want to encourage people to continue to go to handsoffuhuru.org to join this fight back. You'll see on the announcement slide some of the ways that you can be a part of this work. And I do want to say, if chat moderators can put this in the chat, if you handsoffuhuru.org/subscribe. If you do that, it'll ask you to just enter in your email address, and that is the best way for you to stay up to date with all of the events and the activities happening throughout the campaign. So yes, join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. This coalition was built in, with this in mind, that all across the political spectrum, we can unite on simple principles and of unity. And so you can read our demands, you can read our statement of unity, you can join the coalition, go to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition, or you can email us at coalition@handsoffuhuru.org. And we say, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, hands off Venezuela, long live the Bolivarian Revolution, stop the U.S. attacks on President Maduro and the People's Bolivarian Government. This is actually a banner that you can download at the on the Hands Off Uhuru website, handsoffuhuru.org/outreach, has all of the propaganda, flyers that you want to learn about, as well as what was discussed earlier with the conspiracy. You can find all of the things here, but we want to really salute these comrades and say, hands off Venezuela. We are serious about, defending this, this revolution. And we want to say, hasta la victoria siempre. Join and build the Hands Off Uhuru Latin America Front. We have our February meeting that will be on February 10th. We meet on the second Tuesday of the month. So we want to invite you to participate in that meeting. More information will come out in our mailer light. So continue to, subscribe so you can stay in touch with the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back on the Latin America front. And I really want to salute that committee one more time. We say, don't stop talking about the Uhuru 3. This has been mentioned in this, webinar over, several times. And I just want to salute the Uhuru 3 for leading this struggle around the question of free speech. So you can learn more by going to handsoffuhuru.org and learn more about how the appeal and other things are developing. Follow us on social media, on all of our platforms. You can just do the hashtag #HandsOffUhuru, or also find us with the @ #HandsOffUhuru. And I think that slide was in there twice. So we want to build the International Anti-Colonial Human Rights Campaign. So on January 31st, we're inviting you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/meeting. This is where you can register to participate in the planning meeting. We are planning for a larger conference in March. March will be the International Human Rights or Anti-Colonial Human Rights Conference, but we need to plan for that. So we want to, invite you to be a part of that. So you can register. The link is in the chat. And we want to invite everybody, who's on this call and from around the world to come to St. Louis, Missouri. Come in April 17th through 19th. There's a lot of other activities, happening throughout that time, but send a representative, send a delegate, to the African People's Socialist Party International Plenary Conference, which will be taking place in St. Louis, Missouri on April 17th through the 19th. And the theme is "This Time Till It's Won, Power in Our Own Hands." It's not just Trump, it's the whole damn system. So if that doesn't tell you what this is going to be about, then I don't know, but then you need to come and find out. So register by going to apsplenary.org or apsplenary.org/register. And you can read the call, to hear the call for this, and as well learn more about housing and, other information that will be important for you to build and organize to get there. And we want to remind everybody, or at least to announce, that in February, we celebrate, throughout the Uhuru movement, African Martyrs Day. And on February 21st, we, commemorate all of the fallen comrades and the leaders on this day. And we salute, Brother Malcolm X, who was, assassinated, on February 21st, 1965. And so we want to use that day as a day to remember and to honor, those who have fallen, all African martyrs, from, Mike Brown to Assata Shakur, to Malcolm X. These are our African martyrs. And so we want to invite you to join us on the activities that will be taking place on that day throughout the African, world, but also other, information coming from the organization. Again, March 14th is the International Anti-Colonial Human Rights Conference date, but more information will be coming out from that. And we want to invite you all to, to order, to write for, to buy, to sell the Burning Spear newspaper. The January issue is already out. This is our platform, comrades, just like we have our other comrades on the call who have, these papers and, news medias and platforms. We have to be able to speak on in our own interest. So we invite you to, learn more about the Burning Spear. You can go to theburningspear.com and continue to support the economic work of the African People's Socialist Party, of the Uhuru movement, like get you a nice, sweet, tasty pie at Uhuru Bakery and Cafe, which is another institution in addition to the Burning Spear, of the over 50 economic institutions. So follow us at handsoffuhuru.org. And I, just like to continue to use this last slide to say that it's not over and we will fight back until it's won. These are our comrades on the ground in South Africa, with their hands off Uhuru, hands off Omali Yeshitela, stop FBI attacks, on the ground. And so we want to salute from South Africa to where I am, Southern California. We say hands off Uhuru, hands off Venezuela, hands off the people's struggles, and we are winning. So Uhuru comrades, thank you so much. Un abrazo. Hasta la victoria siempre. We are winning. And we're going to show a quick video on the way out to just close today's event. So look forward to seeing you all soon. Uhuru.
Súbelo, súbelo. Venezuela está clara. Nada nos detiene. Oye el coro. Hey, no, no, bring the band. No war, yes peace. Por mi gente y mi familia. Fui presidente Maduro, Asilia. Lo queremos de vuelta. Bring them back. Bring them back. No war, yes peace. Por mi gente y mi familia. Fui presidente Maduro, Asilia. Lo queremos de vuelta. Bring them back. Hay indignación, se nota en la piel, pero nuestra esencia es seguir de pie, con pulso encendido, con alma decidida. La familia se cuida, la esperanza se activa. Es convicción, es corazón, es alegría, firme con dirección. Mano con mano, mirada para adelante, lo que es de Venezuela vuelve a su gente. No war, yes peace. Por mi gente y mi familia. Fui presidente Maduro, Asilia. Lo queremos de vuelta. Bring them back. Bring them back. Tenemos proyectos, se siente en el barrio. Tenemos camino, se ve en el trabajo. La unidad nos cuida, la gente confía. Construyendo patria de noche y de día. Y lo decimos claro, sin dar media vuelta. Que vuelvan con nosotros, los queremos de vuelta. Con fe y con fuerza, con todo el país. Venezuela crece y no va a desistir. Él se avanza. Tú tienes mi confianza. Él se avanza. Tú tienes mi confianza. No war, yes peace. Por mi gente y mi familia. Free President Maduro, Ancilia. Los queremos de vuelta. Bring them back.